Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in part 14 of What If the Transformers crash landed in Code Geass. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Tropical skirmish. Zero stood on the catwalk that oversaw the bridge of the Ark. Right by his side was Optimus Prime, with Lady Geass standing right next to the masked revolutionary. They all stood in front of the assembly of all the Autobots and virtually every Black Knight under their command. A part of Lelouch almost couldn't believe it. It wasn't that long ago that he and the Autobots were only allied with Kazuki Resistance Cell. Since then they've brought in nearly every Japanese resistance group into their ranks, including the Yamato Alliance and even the Japan Liberation Front. There were even more than a few Britannians who joined up with them as well. With Kyoto's aid, this alliance has even made contact with a worldwide network group known as Peace Mark. Already, the Autobots and Black Knights together were likely the biggest anti-Britannian organization in the entire world, not aligned with any other superpower. Due to our reorganization and expansion, more than a few changes have been made within our chain of command. Optimus began. First and foremost, our new Chief of Military Affairs will be Kiyoshiro Todo, co-led by Ironhide, who will be in charge of all nightmare training and head of the Vanguard. There were some ahs and murmurs of approval from many Black Knights as Todo made eye contact with Ironhide, both nodding. Additionally, the four Holy Swords will work alongside the Wreckers unit, consisting of Bulkhead, Wheeljack, and Rai. Zero continued. Likewise, Ironhide and Todo will act as your commanders. Sounds fair. Wheeljack nodded with a slight smirk. Wreckers, huh? Asahina asked Ra with a slight smirk, liking the sound of that. Yep, and in the Wreckers, we don't call for backup. Rai looked towards Bulkhead as they shared a smirk. We call for cleanup. Bulkhead and Rai said at the same time, resulting in some approving cheers from their Black Knight peers. Taking charge of all intelligence, espionage, and public relation matters with Kyoto will be Tatewaki Kates and Diethard Reed. Optimus continued. Though there were no doubts about Katis's placement as he himself approved of it, there was some murmurs of doubt in regard to Diethard, who remained stoic during the whole duration. Zero, Optimus, I'm not a racist, but what's your reasoning for employing one of them in such a sensitive position? Chiba asked. Reasoning? What of myself and my comrades? Optimus answered the question. We do not hail from Earth, yet you still choose to fight beside us. Additionally, we have several Britannians within our ranks. Shirley in particular fidgeted slightly, but Rai put a comforting hand on her shoulder and smiled at her, resulting in her smiling back at him. In this organization, it doesn't matter who you are or where you are from, even if you're from a different planet. Zero continued to explain. What we're looking for is what you're capable of contributing to our cause. With those words from Optimus and Zero, everyone quieted down as they accepted their leader's choice, though some more reluctantly than others. Getting back on track, our deputy commander will be Konami Ogi. Zero continued. Ogi was more than a little surprised. Me, really? Do you object? Zero asked. Well, no, it's just, Ogi wasn't sure how to respond. You got what it takes. Ironhide spoke to him directly. Zero and Optimus wouldn't have picked you for that position if they didn't think you can pull it off. Ogi then turned around to face several approving smiles from his former comrades in his old resistance group as they gave smiles and nods. He smiled as well as he turned around to salute both Optimus and Zero. I won't let you down. Heads of the Research and Development branch will be Ratchet, Fix-It, and Rakshata Chala. Optimus informed. Well, looks like we're going to be spending quite a lot of time together, boys. Rakshata said casually as she held the pipe from her mouth, addressing the Autobot medic and orange minicon next to her. I look forward to working with you. Fix-It said in a friendly fashion. Yes, I suppose we'll have to make do. Ratchet accepted the proposal. With the formation of the Zero Squad, we have Bumblebee, Colin Kazuki, RC, and Cliffjumper. Zero spoke directly to the aforementioned Redhead and Autobot trio. Zero Squad, Colin asked. An elite guard under mine and Optimus' direct command. Zero explained. Think of yourselves as the vanguard of our alliance. Elite guard, huh? Cliffjumper shared a knowing look with RC. You hear that, partner? We're on the elite guard now. He chuckled. Very funny. RC smirked with a raised eyebrow. The window screen of the bridge behind Optimus, Kagaya, and Zero turned on to reveal the branching structure of all the aforementioned groups as well as the squads and units below them under their command. Look for your name on this list. Zero continued. That will be the squad you are assigned to, and which squad will work directly under which unit that was spoken of thus far, that is all. Everyone got a clear view of the organization chart and could clearly see their names. Most of the Black Knights present were placed in combat groups, others were placed in intelligence units. Shirley saw her name under the former category and smiled as that meant she'd be working with Kagaya, whom she developed a genuine friendship with since joining, but also, it meant she was actually making a contribution to this cause. To say she was honored was an understatement. Hey, check it out. Tamaki saw his name. My squad is under the wreckers. Hell yeah. If you have any questions, you may state them now. Optimus said. Otherwise, you are dismissed. With that, nearly every Black Knight quickly left the bridge now that the meeting was over. However, Diethard was among the few that stayed. Zero, Optimus, there's one issue that still needs to be dealt with. Area 11 Royal Palace. This was the ceremony of Suzaku's ascension to knighthood. He was dressed in white formal attire with a sheathed sword at his side. Among those gathered were virtually every Britannian noble from Area 11, however, most, if not all, did not approve of this in the slightest. Who cares if he's an honorary Britannian? Knighting in 11 is just. And broadcasting it live, how'd he ever win her favor, I wonder? Well, even a princess has needs, right? Suzaku walked straight towards Princess Euphemia as she sat on her throne awaiting him. Ashford Academy. Nearly the entire campus was watching the ceremony as well. Several students watched from their personal mobile devices, and there were some that didn't approve either. No, are they kidding? No, this can't be happening. They're making him a major. And 11. Nina didn't say anything but couldn't help but wince unconformably as she listened to the broadcast as well. Suzaku Kururugi. Euphemia began as she stood and Suzaku kneeled before her. Will thou upon this day pledge thy fealty to Britannia, and stand as a knight to the crown? Yes, your highness. Suzaku replied. Does thou wish to abandon thyself, and be sword and shield for the sake of the greater good? Euphemia asked. Yes, your highness. Suzaku repeated as he unsheathed his sword and handed the handle towards Euphemia. She took the sword in her hands and gently tapped his shoulders with the blade. I, Euphemia Lee Britannia, do hereby dub thee, Sir Suzaku Kururugi. Camelot Division. So, whose payroll is he on now? One member asked as the division watched the ceremony from their own television. I believe Lloyd's already working on that. Cecile answered. What about the Decepticons? Another member asked. How are they going to handle this? Honestly, I have no idea. Cecile replied. Euphemia handed Suzaku back the sword as he sheathed it and stood up to face the crowd of nobles. The ceremony was finished. He was now officially the knight to Princess Euphemia. Many of the nobles didn't even try to hide their faces of disapproval or even disgust. It was deathly silent, until Lloyd Asplund genuinely clapped for Suzaku. It wasn't just Lloyd, both Suzaku and Euphemia heard a series of claps from the side as they saw Darlton along with the Knights of the Round, Gino, Nonette, Monica, and even the ever-stoic Anya, clap for Suzaku's success and even smile, with the exception of Anya who seemed physically incapable of clapping. Though the rest of the nobles still didn't approve, they too joined the applause, if only to keep themselves from looking bad on live television. The Nemesis. Megatron, Starscream, Soundwave, Thundercracker, Skywarp, Dreadwing, Knockout, Breakdown, and even Arachnid all gathered on the bridge and witnessed the entire ceremony. Well, isn't that cute? Arachnid teased. Honestly, it makes me want to vomit. Starscream commented with a scowl. That is what I would do if I were a human. Britannians knighting in 11. Skywarp drooled. Personally, I don't see a difference between the two, but this is gonna drive a lot of them up the wall. Yes, this will definitely cause them some problems. Thundercracker saw the logic. If he's working with Britannia now, does this mean I won't get a chance to work with the Lancelot again? Knockout asked. I don't really care. Breakdown shrugged. Why do you all seem so disapproving over this matter? Dreadwing asked his fellow Decepticons. Kururugi has gained more approval and this could help further cement our alliance as he is one of us. I don't know if you've noticed, Dreadwing. Starscream began. But Britannia doesn't seem all that cooperative with us. This could be an attempt to dismantle our ranks from within. I never did approve of Kururugi joining us to begin with. This is not our choice to make. Megatron finally spoke. Suzaku had the choice to decline Euphemia's offer, yet he accepted. Technically, I think he actually felt he had no choice. Thundercracker pointed out. He's so complacent with following orders, he probably doesn't even take his own will into account. Starscream groaned as he rolled his eyes. Except when those orders are to execute an enemy. He still manages to find a way to worm his way out of that scenario every time. What do you expect? Arachnid taunted. He's an idealist. And there's nothing I despise more than idealism. And there is nothing I despise more than your constant rambling. Dreadwing glared at the She-Con. Why are you being so defensive about this, Dreadwing? Breakdown questioned. You got a soft spot for Kururugi and that little princess. He was her bodyguard and, come to think of it, are you still her bodyguard? Skywarp asked in a mocking sense to the glaring seeker. Yes, Skywarp, I do believe he is. Starscream commented as he looked at Dreadwing right in the optics. Which makes me wonder, where do your loyalties truly lie? Don't you dare question me about loyalty, Starscream, not with the amount of backstabbings on your personal record. Dreadwing exclaimed. Yet, I remain the second in command, not you. Starscream glared back. Enough. Megatron slammed his fist on the console to silence his bickering subordinates. I understand what you are all saying. And I will agree that Suzaku has consistently found ways of avoiding dealing mutual blows to our mutual enemies. If this becomes a problem, I will personally order him to leave Euphemia's side and return to ours permanently. What if he chooses to ignore that order? Knockout asked. I certainly wouldn't put it past the kid. I believe I may have a method of persuading him should he disapprove. Megatron said, sparing a knowing glance at Soundwave. Lord Megatron, I see no reason why Suzaku's status as Euphemia's knight would be a problem. Dreadwing spoke. I admit, his reluctance of striking down our enemy is troublesome as he is a soldier. However, I have not seen any acts of insubordination from him. Maybe not from Suzaku himself, but from the side he has chosen, Megatron answered. Britannia is starting to step outside their bounds with us. Is that why you had Soundwave broadcast our fight with the Autobots and the Black Knights during Toto's escape? Arachnid asked. Charles Z. Britannia has been planning something behind my back. Megatron revealed. Something, I imagine, could be a potential threat to us. Speaking of which, have we received a response from Charles? He asked Soundwave, who only shook his head in response, which surprised many Decepticons present. What? He hasn't even made a public announcement. Starscream asked, which Soundwave responded with another shake of his head. That is most strange. From what we've seen, the Emperor always wants to have a tight grip on his kingdom. Arachnid said. So, the fact that he hasn't even responded to our presence being broadcasted live is rather odd. So, why don't we just go over to his house and find out what he's up to ourselves? Skywarp asked. Yeah, I mean we could ground bridge there right now if we wanted. Breakdown stated. Even tear up the entire palace until we find something. No, we cannot just attack our allies when we have no evidence of any transgressions. Dreadwing stated. Dreadwing is correct. Megatron agreed. We possess no evidence, only theories. Until we know what exactly Charles has planned, I cannot authorize any moves against him. So I will not tolerate any actions taken without my permission, Starscream. He directed his look towards the Seeker, who only stuttered and stepped back cautiously. Or from you, Arachnid. He looked at the Spider-Con, who only scowled as she looked down. Now, if there is nothing else you wish to say, you may leave. Yes, Lord Megatron. All the Decepticons said simultaneously as they left the bridge, leaving Megatron alone with Soundwave. Monitor all Britannian communications. Megatron ordered his surveillance chief. Just because Charles hasn't made any public declarations doesn't mean he hasn't made a move. He and Victor are plotting something, and I intend to find out. Ashford Academy Clubhouse. I'm so happy for Suzaku. Nunnally said as she was handed a cup of tea from Sayoko, who in turn, offered one to CC, which she accepted with a nod. As am I, Lady Nunnally. Sayoko smiled as she left the dining room with the empty teapot. I don't want to sound too pessimistic, but military duties are more than a little dangerous. CC commented, especially given Britannia's discriminatory policies. I'm sure that Euphemia will help him every step of the way though. Nunnally said, her smile still present. She really hasn't changed. She thought that last part with a reminiscent smile. CC sighed with a small smile as she shook her head. Nunnally, you are too pure for this world. Nunnally stuck out her tongue in response and gave a small laugh. By the way, CC. Sarah. The disabled girl looked in confusion as CC spoke. My real name, it's Sarah. Oh, I like Sarah. It's a very nice name. Nunnally smiled. But what I wanted to say was, I'm a little surprised you're staying here. Normally, Lelouch doesn't let people stay here too long, except for Rai. Lelouch has been very busy lately working with some friends of ours, so he asked me to keep you company. Sarah answered. And before you ask, no, I'm not dating him or anything like that. I'm not really interested in any romantic relationships at the moment. Nunnally giggled in response. It's all right, and between you and me, I think Big Brother might be interested in Colin. An amused look formed on CC's face as she raised an eyebrow. What makes you say that? Well, he did let us stay with her when Ashford was closed down recently. Nunnally commented. And I get this feeling that she might actually like him back. I may be blind, but I'm not stupid. Sarah chuckled. I take back when I said you were too pure, you got a real mischievous streak in you. She and Nunnally chuckled. However, Chera's gaze fell onto the window where she thought she saw a familiar figure outside. She stopped laughing and quickly made her way to the window. However, once she looked outside, the figure she thought she saw had vanished. Sarah, is something wrong? Nunnally asked with concern. I just thought I saw something, Sarah said as she closed the window and casted a glare outside. There was no mistaking who she saw. She honestly had a feeling he'd try to get to Nunnally after she terminated her contract with Marianne. Which is why she told Lelouch that she'd be staying at the clubhouse to protect Nunnally in case their assailant tried to get to her, that is until Lelouch decided it was the right time to move Nunnally to the Ark. Though in all honesty, she hoped that time would be soon. Meanwhile, outside the clubhouse, Vivi hid behind a pair of trees as he had a scowl on his face. Damn it, why is CC here? There's no way I can send Rollo or any of my other contractors to get Nunnally if she's there. Did she tell Lelouch about me? Did she tell the Autobots about me? What else did she tell? He clenched his fists. This is exactly why you should have sent Pluton to grab her, Charles. Who cares about these worthless Autobots? There's no way they can best what we've created, but no. You had to be all scared as usual. Well, if you can't help me, I'll just find someone else who can. A sadistic smile formed on the immortal boy's face. And I think I have an idea on how to get his attention. The Ark. All 8 Autobots were on the bridge, alongside Zero and a group of Black Knights consisting of Ogi, Colin, Tamaki, Rai, Shirley, Kagaya, Toto, Diathard, Katais, Rakshata, and the 4 Holy Swords, all of whom sat in the lounge area alongside Fixit as the Autobots stood around them. Suzaku Kururugi, he's become a focal point among 11s who are Britannian supporters. Diathard said, I recommend he be assassinated. Absolutely not, Zero said immediately. He's right, we're not assassins. That's not how the Autobots or Black Knights work. Cliffjumper agreed. Even if that weren't the case, the Japanese, be they Britannian supporters or not, would be revolted by such a cowardly act. Toto spoke. I agree with Toto. Katais spoke. Enemy or not, we will not assassinate our enemies. Exactly. Chiba said. I agree. Senba added. Same here. Asahina also put his 2 cents in. Yep. Even Urabe nodded. That's right. Ogi said as well. The Black Knights and Autobots don't kill the defenseless. So, what are we gonna do about him? Tamaki asked. We have discussed the possibility of recruiting Suzaku to our side. Optimus answered, surprising many of the Black Knights present. Optimus is right, Shirley said. Suzaku may be working with Britannia and the Decepticons right now, but he's not a bad person. We've seen Suzaku outside of work before. Rai added. He's not a killer. Yet, RC put in. Working alongside the likes of Megatron has not done him any favors. Buckethead always has a way of twisting and manipulating bots. Bulkhead added. So even if Suzaku isn't bad, actually convincing him to leave won't be that easy. I'll say, kid's as stubborn as a rock. Wheeljack added as well. But if we tell him how bad the Decepticons really are, it might convince him to leave, right? Shirley asked. Don't you guys have any evidence to show what they did to Cybertron? Yes, we do, Cliffjumper said. If we show him that, I'm sure we can convince him to leave the cons. But it's not just the cons we gotta worry about, Ironhide said. It's also convincing him to leave Britannia. Ain't that the same thing? Tamaki asked. No, Zero spoke. We've already seen the signs, especially in our more recent battle with them. They're divided. This so-called alliance between Britannia and the Decepticons is beginning to crumble. We have seen signs that both factions claim to be superior over the other. Optimus added. It may be only a matter of time before their weapons are turned toward one another. Isn't that a good thing, though? Colin asked. I mean, if they take each other out, less trouble for us. What about the innocent people who'll get caught in the crossfire? RC reminded her partner. She's right, Cliffjumper added. If the cons and Brits go to war with each other, you can expect the streets to run more red with blood than blue with energon. Rockshata and I have run the numbers based on what we know of the Decepticons and Britannia thus far. Fixit pointed out. And we have determined that if both sides were to fight one another, it is most likely that Britannia will lose. Britannia might have numbers on their side, but the Decepticons have superior firepower and strength. Rockshata herself added. Britannia might not go down without a fight, but their defeat would be all but certain. And if the Decepticons down in that scenario, it would only cause more trouble for Earth. Ratchet said. They won't recognize civilians or differences in nationality. They would more than likely wipe out the entire human race and claim all the energon deposits for themselves. Would they really go that far? Catace asked as he looked at Optimus directly. Yes, Optimus answered without hesitation. Megatron did not bat an eye when he caused the destruction of our home planet, and even prevented us from leaving once it was deemed uninhabitable. It is highly unlikely that he would allow humanity to prosper on a world that is not his own. All the Autobots, including Zero, had similar expressions as they knew from the beginning what Megatron was capable of and what was at stake. In regards to the Black Knights, Shirley, Colin, Rai, Kagaya, Ogi, even Tamaki looked visibly terrified. Rockshata only raised an eyebrow. Todo's eyes narrowed as the four holy swords, and Catace had looks that mixed shock and anger. Diethard, however, his face mixed between excitement and terror. One side was excited about such a battle, the other was more terror for his own life. He's really that bad, huh? Urabe asked. You have no idea, RC commented. Hey, speaking of which, wasn't that fight we had with them broadcasted live? Ogi asked. What did Kyoto say about that? He asked Kagaya in particular. They were about as surprised as everyone else. Kagaya answered. But what we're really concerned about is that the Britannian Emperor hasn't offered a response of his own. Really? Nothing? Bulkhead asked in surprise. He didn't go on TV and make another, social Darwinist speech, or whatever. Cliffjumper also asked. No, nothing at all. Kagaya shook her head. That is rather concerning, Catace commented. Agreed, it's not like the Emperor to just ignore something like that. Zero said. We may be getting off track. Rockshata spoke up. What exactly is our plan for Suzaku? You said you intend to get him over to our side, how? Todo, can't you say something to him? You were his sensei before the occupation. Catace asked. I tried speaking with him during that last mission. Todo replied. He didn't appear to listen. However, I did notice some hesitance when I asked him if he were to choose sides between Britannia or the Decepticons when they turn on each other. He didn't even answer the question. Maybe that's how we do it. RC put her thoughts in. If we get certain Britannians to side with us, maybe he'll follow them over to our side. It's not impossible, I mean we got Britannians sitting right here. Cliffjumper added. It would have to be someone pretty high up, though. Bulkhead said. Shirley suddenly got an idea. What about Princess Euphemia? That question received both surprised and questionable looks. When my friends and I were taking hostage at the hotel jacking, she stood up to the people responsible and even revealed herself. It's true, Rice said. I was there too. She risked her life to save people who couldn't defend themselves. I can vouch for that as well. Zero added. A Britannian royal on our side? Tamaki questioned skeptically. I don't think so. Yeah, we might have Britannians on our ranks, but I don't see anybody from the royal family actually siding with us. Chiba said. I wouldn't be so sure. Zero said as he stood up. After all, you're speaking to one right now. He placed his fingers on his mask and removed it to reveal his face. Many Autobots were surprised at Lelouch's gesture, with Bumblebee, Colin, Rai, Kagaya, and Shirley being the most worried for Lelouch's sake. Though Optimus and even Toto nodded in approval. To say the remaining Black Knights present, excluding Rakshata, were surprised was an understatement. Lelouch v Britannia, formerly the 11th Prince of the so-called Holy Empire of Britannia, and 17th in line for the throne at your service. The former prince gave a mocking bow. Ogi, Senba, Katase, and Asahina looked more than a little stunned. Tamaki's jaw dropped, Senba's mouth hung open as even Chiba's eyes widened. Rakshata only gave a small raised eyebrow. Diethard's face was equivalent to that of a little kid who had just gotten the best Christmas present ever. You're a prince. Ogi stuttered, though he and Tamaki saw his face during their first meeting with Kyoto. To learn that their masked leader was a prince of Britannia was more than a little mind-blowing. Former prince. Lelouch made sure to put extra emphasis on the former part. No fucking way, that was all Tamaki could say. The dead prince, Diethard's face trembled with a shaking grin. Of course, now it makes sense. Who else but an 11 would lead such a rebellion? Why do you all look so surprised? Rakshata asked casually. Considering we're working alongside giant sentient alien robots, this shouldn't be that big of a shock. That's pretty bold of you, Lelouch. Toto had a smirk. Revealing your identity, like this. When you form an army, it's important for their leader to establish trust. Wouldn't you agree, Optimus? He asked the Autobot leader who could only smile in response. Yes, that is absolutely correct. Optimus confirmed. Toto, you know him? Katase questioned. Of course, don't you remember, General? Toto asked. Back when I served under Prime Minister Kururugi as Suzaku's teacher, I also got to know our former prince here, as well as his disabled younger sister. How is Nunnally, by the way? She's doing fine, albeit still blind and crippled. Lelouch replied. Maybe I can get a chance to see her again. Kagaya asked. We were pretty good friends at the shrine. I think that can be manageable. Lelouch had a small smile. That's right, I remember that as well. Senba said. You two were sent to Japan by the Emperor as a bargaining chip. That is correct. Lelouch nodded. Only to be discarded like trash once. Dear old dad, invented his precious nightmare frames. Did you guys know about this? Asahina asked the Autobots directly. The first time we ran into Lelouch was way back in Shinjuku. Bulkhead answered. We took him back to the Ark after he killed Clovis. Ironhide added. We told him about the war for Cybertron, and once we all learned we had a common enemy, we decided to join forces. Cliffjumper said. Why only wait till now to tell us? Chiba questioned. A Britannian prince leading a rebellion consisting of people who are oppressed by Britannia, how do you think that would go? RC replied rhetorically. Point taken. Chiba confirmed. I apologize for hiding my identity from most of you. Lelouch said sincerely. But I had to be sure I could gain your trust, and I wasn't sure if I could if you knew who I was before. So, I decided to prove myself with actions rather than words. That's right, Lelouch here has been kicking Britannia's ass since day one. Colin stated. Look where we are now, and all that we've gained since then. In fact, most of us would be dead if it weren't for him and the Autobots. That's right, Ogi said as his loyalty toward Zero appeared almost cemented now. He's always been here for us, they all have. I don't care if he is a prince, he's my leader and I'll follow him into hell if he asked me to. Damn straight. Tamaki exclaimed before turning to Lelouch directly. Remember what I said after that whole scraplet mess. I don't care who you are, Japanese, Britannian, Chinese, a werewolf, or even a bunch of midgets in a bodysuit. Lelouch has every reason to fight Britannia as everyone else here in this room. Kagaya said as she wrapped her arms around his. He's my hero, and I won't let anybody else say otherwise. And it's not just Lelouch, look at everything the Autobots have done for us. Rice said. They gave us a chance to fight. A chance to finally stand up to both Britannia and the Decepticons. There's no way I'm gonna walk away from this fight now, not when we have a chance to win it. Shirley also stood up. I might not be a soldier, but I still want to help in any way I can. Lelouch has my support too, prince or not. Geass and the four holy swords were more than a little stunned. They all knew the story of Lelouch v Britannia and his sister, with their exile, and their supposed deaths. Yet, despite this reveal, most of the Black Knights still supported him and the Autobots. Even Toto knew and offered his support as well, and if the miracle worker himself was willing to work with him as well, they would be as well. It seems that you've earned your followers' loyalty, Zero. Geass said with a smile. And you've earned mine as well. If Toto and Geass support you, then I do too. Asahina said, as his comrades also joined in. Considering the threat we're up against, both Britannia and the Decepticons, we may not have much of a choice. Senba said, but you got my support too. It took a lot of backbone to reveal your identity like that. I'm in. Urabe smirked. Even Chiba nodded. You may be a prince, but I can tell you have some honor in you. You'll have my support as well. All the Autobots present smiled and nodded, even Ratchet was rather pleased. He, RC, and Ironhide were among those that were skeptical of Lelouch at first, seeing the similarities between him and Megatron. However, they've also seen how much he has changed. Willing to establish bonds and trust with his subordinates, it was clear that Optimus had rubbed off on him. While Bulkhead, Wheeljack, Cliffjumper, Fix-It, and Bumblebee were trusting of Lelouch before, they trusted him more even now. Even Optimus nodded in approval. I thank you, all of you. Lelouch said with a simple smile, doing his best to hide his emotions. Getting back on track, we still have to talk about Suzaku. Rakshata said, seeing as how you actually know him, maybe you could be the one to bring him in. Maybe, but I need to be careful so that I don't reveal my identity to the enemy. Lelouch said. Speaking of which, Ironhide spoke up. Optimus, Lelouch, Ratchet, Toto, I'd like a word with you all in private. Private? Why? Ogi asked. Just trust me, Ironhide said. Though it was subtle, all the Autobots got the hint that they knew what Ironhide was talking about. Even Colin, Rai, Shirley, Kagaya, and Lelouch knew. It was best that this matter was discussed in private. It's all right, all of you go. This shouldn't be long, Toto said. All right, if you say so. Ogi nodded as he and Tamaki stood up, followed by Geass, Rakshata, and the four holy swords. Diethard waited a moment, but he stood up as well. They made their way down the ladder along with Fix-It and prepared to leave. Ironhide noticed how Colin, Rai, Kagaya, and Shirley weren't moving. You kids need to go too. No, we know what you're talking about, Ironhide. We know what happened, and we want to talk about it too. Colin stated. That's right, we're not kids anymore, we can handle it. Rai also said. If that's the case, I think I'll stay too. RC also said. Yeah, so am I. Bulkhead stood firm. I'm staying here too. Bumblebee bleeped, having been silent during most of this conversation. Alright, Ironhide nodded. They waited a few minutes before the four holy swords, Geass, Rakshata, Ogi, Tamaki, and Diethard to leave the bridge alongside Fix-It, Wheeljack, and Cliffjumper. Once they were certain they were alone on the bridge, Optimus spoke. Ironhide, can I assume this is about Suzaku's father? Optimus asked. That's right, Ironhide confirmed. Shirley, Kagaya, Rai, and even Lelouch had sympathetic looks on their faces as Colin had a small scowl, while RC and Bulkhead just looked a bit conflicted. Toto, if you don't mind, what exactly happened back then? Lelouch asked. The miracle worker gave a sigh as he spoke. As I'm certain all of you know, Prime Minister Genbu Kururugi called for do-or-die resistance against Britannia. Suzaku, a 10-year-old boy at the time, tried to oppose his father as he knew millions of people would likely die. But the Prime Minister was about as stubborn as Suzaku is now. When he wouldn't back down, Suzaku drew a knife, even then Genbu called his bluff. Before Suzaku knew it, he had plunged the knife into his own father. The occupants in the room all winced in their own way. He killed his own father when he was 10 years old. Shirley couldn't even imagine what that was like for Suzaku. After that, he completely fell apart. Kagaya added, Kyoto tried to cover up the incident so the population wouldn't try to lynch him. But after Japan was renamed into Area 11, he soon joined the military. He felt if he could work his way up through the system, he could try to change it. Colin said nothing but gave a scoff. Good luck with that. So, all this time, he's been trying to redeem himself. RC commented. He seems little more than a guilt-ridden child. Exactly, which makes it unlikely that he'd actually work with us. Ironhide said. And that's not even counting what's been going on since Megatron got his hooks synced into him. You think Megatron knows about Suzaku's dad? Rai asked. We discussed this and there is no way for us to know for certain. Ratchet said. However, I agree with Ironhide. If Suzaku chooses to try and reform the Britannian system from within, it is highly unlikely he'll side with the forces that are directly opposing Britannia. But you guys literally just said Britannia and the Decepticons would turn against each other. Shirley pointed out. And if we convince Euphemia to side with us, he'll probably follow her to if she asked. Bulkhead added. It's not just that, Ironhide stated. Look, I agree, Megatron might take most of the blame. We all know how much he enjoys his little mind games, just ask Optimus. But Suzaku's had issues before he even knew Megatron even existed. You remember that night after we rescued him, Lelouch. You offered him to join us, but he declined. And even then, before he joined the Decepticons, he was the pilot of the Lancelot and actually attacked us. He believes what we're fighting for is wrong and chooses to become our enemy of his own accord. You all understand, don't you? Ironhide continued as he gestured to Optimus and Lelouch specifically. These two are our leaders, and Suzaku attacked them, calling them out on their ideals and trying to force his on both of them. We're better off without someone like that in our army. An army with no respect and leaders who don't demand it are destined to fall apart quickly. Nobody in the room, not even Shirley, Bulkhead, Rai, Kagaya, or even Lelouch or Optimus had an argument to give. Even Ratchet, Colin, and Toto seemed to be in agreement with Ironhide based on the expressions on their faces. Ironhide then looked to Lelouch specifically. Look, I get it Lelouch. He's your friend and you want to help him. But you can't let him walk all over you and let him get away with all the stuff he's done. If you do that, then it's gonna be me who leaves. That took nearly everyone by surprise. Ironhide, you're making this more complicated than it needs to be. Bulkhead stated. Don't get me wrong, if Suzaku does join us, then great. Ironhide said. If he's willing to accept responsibility for his mistakes, and actually wants to atone, then he'll have my support. But, if he doesn't apologize for what he did, that includes his dad, and tries to put the blame on someone else, then I won't forgive him and I won't stand for it. In other words, we'll treat him as we would any other enemy. Ironhide, wait. Shirley tried to speak. Look, I agree that Suzaku has a lot to answer for, but he's not a bad person. I'm sure if we just try to talk to him, we can settle all that when he joins us. So, you're saying the fact that he killed his own father, or that he actually took arms against us, means nothing? Ironhide exclaimed. He can do whatever he wants without consequence. No, but the brunette couldn't come up with a counter-argument. Surely. Colin got her attention. Ironhide's right. What Suzaku did was very serious, and it wasn't an accident either. We can't just overlook that. That's exactly right. Ratchet agreed as well. If Suzaku's allowed to pull the same kind of stunt with his father on a whim, how are we supposed to trust him moving forward? How do we know he won't try the same thing with Optimus or even Lelouch if we do something he disagrees with? Shirley, Rai, Kagaya, and even Lelouch looked in alarm. Would Suzaku really do that? Would he kill Lelouch and or Optimus if they proposed something he didn't approve of? We've seen that far too many times. RC added. Some people and bots are capable of making amends and redeeming themselves. But, even if they start out as good, sometimes, they might just be too far gone. Ironhide gave a small sigh as he set the record straight. Look, it's simple. If Suzaku is willing to accept responsibility and wants to set things right, then we'll help him. But if he tries to make up some excuse, then he is not welcome here. He looked at Lelouch directly. I'm sure you already know this by now, but this is reality, it's not a game. Lelouch spared a glance at both Bumblebee and Optimus, and even Toto. Though they said nothing, they agreed with what Ironhide said. Ever since he had used his Geass on Cornelia and learned that she would side with them to fight Britannia and the Decepticons, there had been a strong sense of hope that Suzaku could be redeemed as well. But, at the same time, he knew Ironhide was right. If Suzaku had to change, he had to be willing to change himself. They couldn't force it on him, no matter how much Lelouch wanted to. You're right, Lelouch spoke. We've already gone our separate ways before. I hope we can change, but if he can't, though there was some hesitance at first, Lelouch's face became determined. If he can't, then we have to do what we have to. Euphemia's office. You haven't said anything about it yet. The sub-viceroy commented as she spoke with her elder sister over a screen on her computer, even though she already had an idea what she would say in regard to her choosing Suzaku as her knight. Appointing a knight is a privilege of royalty, it's out of my hands, even as viceroy. Cornelia replied, though Euphemia could easily tell Cornelia disapproved of her choice. Don't you see, Suzaku Kururugi is an honorary Britannian, and he's proved himself more than worthy of knighthood. Euphemia stated, but I didn't just choose him because of that. Oh, Cornelia raised an eyebrow of skepticism. Don't you think it's odd that the Decepticons made their public appearance during the fight at the prison recently? Euphy questioned. Why would they hide their presence only to try and reveal themselves now? Yes, I admit that is rather odd. Cornelia acknowledged. What's even more odd is that our father hasn't even made any statements in regard to that particular incident. That took Euphemia by surprise. He hasn't. I've even tried to contact him directly, but I have not received any response. Cornelia replied, causing Euphemia to look in confusion. But what does that have to do with Kururugi? I choose him as my knight so I can get him away from the Decepticons. Euphemia stated, with the exception of Dreadwing, I don't trust any of them. Suzaku is a good person and I can't stand the thought of him working alongside someone like Megatron. Even though you were right not to trust him, discrimination against the numbers is our national policy. The eldest of the Lee Britannian siblings reminded. Then it's time I tried to change that. Euphemia stated. Cornelia's eyes narrowed. Oh, is it now, sub-viceroy? Well, when you become empress, feel free to do so. Charles Z. Britannia still stood in the mysterious floating altar within the cloudy sky as he appeared to be speaking to someone that only he could hear. Megatron is attempting to get a reaction out of me. Charles spoke. Perhaps he is growing suspicious, all the more reason not to do anything. I've known Megatron almost all my life and he is excellent at reading people. All I need to do is keep him focused on Lelouch and Optimus. Yes, perhaps we do need to pick up the pace, but we can't do much until we have CC. Yes, I understand. Suddenly, someone clad in black, who appeared to serve the Emperor, walked onto the scene and whispered something into his ear. What? Schneizel. Yes, Majesty, your orders. Charles had a small smirk on his face. You needn't interfere. Schneizel is formidable, but he's no Megatron. I welcome a challenge from him. Ashford Academy Clubhouse. A toast to the newest knight of Britannia. Gino raised a glass of soda to Suzaku, along with nearly everyone in the Ashford student body as they gathered in the clubhouse ballroom for the celebration filled with pizza and soda. Congratulations. All the students cheered. Gino threw his arm around Suzaku. Welcome to the club, buddy, you're one of us now. Suzaku chuckled nervously. I'm only Princess Euphemia's knight, not a knight of the round. Tomato, tomato. Gino shrugged. Well, regardless, congratulations, Suzaku. You've definitely earned it. Monica smiled as she stood alongside Anya, Millie, Rivals, and even Sayoko with Nunnally. And you have Nunnally to thank for all this. Millie said. I'm sure you're tired of the celebrations. If you don't mind, we'd want to honor you too. Nunnally smiled. Not at all, it's really kind of you. Suzaku smiled back. However, not everyone appeared to be in a celebratory mood as Nina sat alone in the student council's meeting room at her computer in the corner, though she also looked at a magazine with Euphemia's picture in it. Oh, what am I gonna do, Princess Euphemia? She asked as she clearly did not approve of Suzaku becoming a knight, let alone Euphemia's knight. Good afternoon. Lloyd suddenly walked in casually. Have you seen Major Kururugi? They said I could find him here. Lloyd glanced at what was on Nina's computer. Ooh, looks like you're working on some fun stuff. You know what it is? Nina asked in surprise. Oh, I can tell a uranium isotope when I see one. Lloyd said as he leaned over the girl's chair. Wow, you know your stuff. Nina was actually excited to meet someone that actually understood what she was working on as she began to ramble on. Meanwhile, Bumblebee's vehicle form was parked at the building's parking lot with CC in the driver's seat. You saw VV, are you sure? Lelouch questioned over the radio. It was brief, but I'm quite certain. CC confirmed. Don't worry Lelouch, we're keeping an eye out on things here. Bumblebee assured, I doubt he's gonna show up now, but if he does, I'll dropkick him. CC chuckled. That might actually be pretty entertaining to see. Alright, I trust you. Lelouch replied. And Sarah, listen, thank you for watching out for Nunnally. An amused smirk fell on the immortal's face. Who said I'd give you permission to use my name? Bumblebee's radio played a laughing sound effect from a sitcom in response before CC spoke seriously. But seriously, I'd recommend you move Nunnally to the Ark very soon. I'll stay with her until then, and while I can protect her from any Geass agents VV might send after her, the Decepticons are a whole nother story. I understand and thank you again. Lelouch said before hanging up. Well, looks like Lelouch isn't the only one coming out of his shell. Bumblebee observed. Nice to see you making friends too. Don't try and push it, you sound too much like a father. CC said in a bit of a joking fashion. Really? I thought I sounded like a cool big brother. Bumblebee replied. Are you big? Yes. Cool. No. CC cracked. Well, that's just your opinion. Bumblebee joked back. Meanwhile, back inside the clubhouse, Shirley looked at Suzaku for a moment, and while she was happy for him, she was also greatly worried as thoughts of hers, the Autobots, and Black Knight's conversation regarding Suzaku back at the Ark still lingered in her head. While she did agree with them, she had truly hoped they can try to find a way to reach him. Hey, Suzaku. She quickly walked over toward him. Can I talk to you for a moment? Sure thing. Suzaku followed Shirley away from the crowd and in a more secluded area. What is it? He noticed the look on her face. Is something wrong? Well, not really, it's just, Shirley tried to find the right words. I'm happy for you Suzaku, I really am. But, I'm also really worried. I've heard how dangerous being in the military is and if something happened. Suzaku gave a small smile as he put a hand on her shoulder. Shirley, that's nice of you, but you don't have to worry. I can handle myself, besides, you know how Gino and the others are, I doubt I'm going anywhere without them following me. Yeah, but, what if the people you're working for don't have your best intentions at heart? Shirley tried to say. What do you mean? Suzaku asked in confusion. It's just, before Shirley could offer a response, Rai quickly came in. Hey guys, sorry to butt in, but I really need your help Shirley. The white-haired young man said as he quickly grabbed her arm and began to walk away. Congrats Suzaku. Okay. Suzaku really didn't know what to think as he saw Rai pull Shirley away. Rai made his way to Colin, who was hiding around the corner waiting for them. Shirley, what were you trying to do back there? The redhead asked her friend. I wasn't trying to do anything, Shirley tried to speak. Shirley, look, we get what you want to do. I want Suzaku on our side as much as you do, but we have to be careful. Rai told her. I know that, and I know what Ironhide talked about made sense, but I don't want Suzaku to be just another enemy. Shirley said. You've both seen that there is good in him. Maybe there is, Colin admitted, but he has to take responsibility for all the bad stuff he's done. If he can't, then we won't be able to help him. I'm sorry, but we have to trust the bots know what they're doing. Shirley did understand what they were talking about, and while she did agree with them, there was a part of her that wanted to help Suzaku no matter what. But she also knew that they can't let their guard down while he was still in the Decepticons' ranks. So, all she could do was trust her friends. Meanwhile, Suzaku was still somewhat confused by what had just happened with Rai and Shirley and was about to go talk to them and see if he could help with what they had needed her help with, but he felt a hand on his shoulder and looked in surprise to see Lelouch with a friendly smile. Hey Suzaku, sorry I'm late. I got held up with something. Lelouch told him. That's fine, I'm just happy you could be here. Suzaku smiled back before he remembered Lelouch had something to discuss with him before. Hey, what did you want to talk about? You said it was kind of important, right? Yeah, it is. But not right here, Lelouch told him. How about, we talk in private? Sometime later. Before Suzaku could even respond, he heard a familiar voice call to him. Bad news, Suzaku. Both he and Lelouch turned to see Lloyd and Nina walk into the ballroom. You just got even more work to do, I'm afraid. Oh, right, Suzaku said in acknowledgement. You know him? Lelouch asked. Suzaku winced slightly. He's my boss. Gino, Anya, and Monica walked up to him. Oh, hey Lloyd, come to join the celebration? Gino asked in a friendly tone. Afraid not, you and Suzaku got a special job to do. Lloyd said casually. Is it the Autobots and Black Knights again? Anya asked bluntly, which caught the attention of every student there. However, Monica was quick to place a hand on Anya's shoulder and silently keep her from revealing anything classified. You know we can't exactly talk about it here, Monica stated somewhat firmly to Lloyd and her colleagues. Relax, no end of the world scenarios or alien invasions yet. Lloyd brushed off. Oh Lloyd. Millie also walked up. I didn't realize you were coming. You two know each other? Nina asked. We're to be married, Lloyd revealed like it was no big deal. Huh, nearly every student exclaimed at the same time. Even Rye, Shirley, and Colin were stunned as they looked toward each other in surprise. Isn't that right, honey bunch? Lloyd asked in his usual tone. Yeah, Millie said embarrassingly. Secret's out, Suzaku commented. So you knew? Lelouch asked his friend, who only nodded in response. Whoa, what's going on here? Rivals ran up toward the group. Who is this guy? He asked Millie specifically. Earl Asplund. The blonde answered. Earl. He quickly turned to Lloyd. It's an honor, your lordship, he said before talking to Millie again. Now, what did you say your relationship was again? She and I are betrothed. Lloyd answered simply. NNNOOOOO. Rivals screamed dramatically as he fell back, only to be caught by Gino and Monica. Aw, sorry buddy. But hey, plenty of other fish in the sea. Gino tried to cheer him up, only to receive a minor glare from Monica as she helped Rivals sit on a chair. Sorry Rivals. She then spoke to him in a whisper. Just between us, it doesn't look like Millie's all that interested, and Lloyd probably couldn't care less. As a knight of the round, I could help call it off if you want. Rivals then looked to Monica with stars in his eyes. Thank you. Despite the obvious awkward situation, Suzaku walked up to Lloyd and coughed to get his attention. So, do I have military duties then? Yes, an important someone or other is arriving by boat. You, me, and the 4 knights of the round are off to meet him. Lloyd said, along with the Lancelot and Princess Euphemia, naturally. Though many girls gave excited squeals, as the other students looked excited as well, Lelouch spared a knowing glance with Colin, Shirley, and Rye. Perhaps this could serve as an opportunity for them. A few hours later, Suzaku, Gino, Anya, Monica, Nonette, Lloyd, and Cecile were on the boat that was heading for their intended destination. Why Shikini Island? Suzaku asked. The Tokyo settlement would have been a lot safer. Yeah, it is weird that we're meeting out here, Nonette admitted. Wait, you don't know either, Lady Enneagram? Suzaku asked her in surprise. None of us do, Monica added. Ditto. Lloyd added as well. Same, Anya reported. Yep, totally clueless, Gino also said. You still shouldn't have said anything. Cecile scolded Lloyd slightly. After all, your loose lips got our plans leaked onto the net. And Gino posting it on Facebook didn't help either, Monica added with lowered eyebrows as the Knight of 3 himself simply shrugged and chuckled nervously. That girl was so charming though, I couldn't resist, Lloyd said as well. The Ark, Zero and Optimus were on the bridge of the derelict Autobot ship as they addressed all the Autobots and the Black Knights they had selected for this mission, including Ogi, Tamaki, Toto and the Holy Swords, Rakshata, Colin, Rye, and even Shirley and Kagaya were present as well. Euphemia is going to that island to meet a noble from their homeland. Zero explained as a 3-dimensional image of the island itself was projected in front of the group. Her knight, Suzaku Kururugi, as well as the knights of 3, 6, 9, and 12 will be accompanying her. And more than likely, we may see some Decepticons. That far out at sea, the enemy's strength will be limited. From the Ark, we'll also be able to create a signal that will jam all long-ranged frequencies, cutting off any possible Decepticon reinforcements. Optimus added, our primary objective is the capture of Suzaku Kururugi and the Lancelot Nightmare. This is our strategy. As Optimus began to explain, a series of dots appeared on specific locations on the island's image. The Zero Squad, Holy Swords, and Wreckers will attack the base to get the enemy's attention. Once we have confirmed sighting of the Lancelot as well as the Knights of the Round, the Zero Squad and Wreckers will draw away the attention of the Rounds and any other Decepticons present. Zero and myself will draw the Lancelot away. We have several specific traps set in play for the enemy. Zero continued. By reverse engineering the Decepticon weapon known as the Immobilizer, we have created a new weapon that should immobilize the enemy units. However, the only issue is once the field is activated, we will be unable to activate a ground bridge portal on that specific location due to the energy being generated. Ratchet added. So, we will be unable to directly transport Suzaku to the Ark. You just let us worry about that, Ratchet. Zero told him. A few moments later, Diethard walked into a nightmare bay where Ironhide was waiting for him. You wanted to see me? The Britannian asked. I want to know what you think you're doing. Ironhide got right to the point. I'm not sure what you mean. Care to be more specific? Diethard asked. Why are you here, with us? Ironhide questioned. I read your information, you may have been demoted, but you've never committed any crimes or made public displays of disapproval toward Britannia. So why join our cause? You mean, aside from the fact that the Decepticons plan to commit genocide for all humans, Britannian or otherwise? Diethard responded. Think you what you will about me, but I'm not crazy enough that I'd support the complete destruction of Earth. You know Zero's identity. Ironhide stated. Optimus has acknowledged that there are those capable of change, and I can agree with him. But I'm also smart enough to know when someone's just using a cause for their own gain. I have no intention of siding with the Britannians or Decepticons if that's what you're implying. Diethard said. As I said, the Decepticons are more interested in the complete extinction of humanity, and Britannia would rather the world remain stagnant, never changing. However, when I first saw you and Zero that night you rescued Kururugi from the purebloods, I trembled. It was like a new era had taken form and appeared before me. I wish to document the exploits of the Autobots and the Black Knights. To watch you topple Britannia and take this world for your own. We're not trying to take the Earth, we're trying to liberate it. Ironhide narrowed his optics. Let me make something perfectly clear, Diethard. We protect people, not govern them. We have no intention of ruling anything or anyone. You got that? I understand perfectly. Diethard said casually. You can do what you wish, but as long as I am here with you, to document the exploits of the legendary Autobots and Black Knights as their conflict against Britannia and the Decepticons shakes this world to its core. Ironhide scoffed. Sounds to me like you're attempting to fabricate history, instead of documenting it. Objectivity is a fairy tale. Diethard said, his fanatic smile still on his face. In the end, journalism of the human mind like everything else, or Cybertronian mind in your case. You can contribute to our cause, and Lelouch saw fit to reveal his identity to you. Ironhide stated. But, if you do anything to endanger anybody here, or overstep your bounds in the slightest, I'll be the first one you answer to. Got it? Yes, of course. Diethard nodded. Euphemia had arrived at the docks of Shikini Island, with Suzaku, Gino, Anya, Monica, and Nonette right beside her along with Lloyd and Cecile. The Camelot Division's vehicles were unloaded, along with the personal nightmares of Suzaku and the other knights. They were greeted by not only the military escorts awaiting them but also 4 Decepticon seekers that arrived via their vehicle modes before they transformed and landed on the ground. Dreadwing, it's a pleasure to see you again. Euphemia smiled at him. And a pleasure to see you as well, Princess Euphemia. Dreadwing had a small smile of his own as he gave a nod. Euphemia's smile faded once she saw Starscream, along with Thundercracker and Skywarp. Starscream, she greeted professionally. That's Commander Starscream, the lead seeker corrected before looking at Suzaku. What is your malfunction, Kururugi? Bow before your superior. Suzaku was somewhat surprised and about to make that gesture. There is no need for Suzaku to do such a thing. Euphemia said professionally while also giving a subtle glare in Starscream's direction. After all, he is my knight. He was our soldier, long before you. Starscream glared. So, you would be wise to remember your place. I already know my place, Commander. Euphemia maintained her stance, not even remotely intimidated by him. But I fear you may be overstepping yours. Oh, snap. Gino snickered as even Nonette and Monica smirked. Cecile looked somewhat worried, while Suzaku was more than a little shocked. Well, who knew Princess Euphemia was such a savage? Lloyd commented. Starscream growled as even Thundercracker and Skywarp smirked themselves. Why you insolent little. That is enough. Dreadwing pulled back on Starscream's wing. We are not here to cause trouble. Understood. Dreadwing gave a glare at Starscream, causing the Seeker to glare back before he backed away. Ahem. One military officer got Euphemia's attention. Your Majesty, we've prepared a room for you back at headquarters, if you care to await there. Is it safe to assume that the ship is docking here? Euphemia asked the officer. Yes, that hasn't changed. The officer replied. This will do fine, then. Euphemia said. Very well, I'll just arrange. However, the officer suddenly got an alert on his personal radio. Multiple explosions erupted all over the base as the Autobots and Black Knights begun their attack. Zero Squad, Holy Swords, and Wreckers begin your assault. Toto ordered as he was in his custom Gekka. First and second squads, cover their flanks. On the right side of the base, Collins Gurren took point as she used her Radiant Wave Surger on a Sutherland to reduce it to flames in mere seconds. Her colleagues drove around her as Bumblebee and Cliffjumper transformed and opened fire with their Energon blasters to take out the incoming helicopters. RC shot in between them toward an incoming Sutherland before she transformed and flipped over the Nightmare to shoot at it from behind and destroy it. Metal abominations. One Sutherland's pilot exclaimed as it shot at the charging bulkhead who completely obliterated the Nightmare with a single mace strike. Talk about packing a punch. Asahina commented as he sliced a Sutherland in half with his Gekka's katana as Ray's own blue Gekka covered him with a projectile from his Radiant Wave Surger. Ironhide, Senba, and Chiba formed a circle as 7 Sutherlands appeared to surround them, but a few blasts from Ironhide's cannons were able to blast 3 of them away, causing the remaining 4 to scatter, but both Chiba and Senba were able to intercept them easily and cut them to pieces with their Gekka's katanas. Wheeljack had sliced one Sutherland in half with his sword as he came back to back with Urabe's Gekka. That's 6 nightmares for me. The Wrecker smirked. Bet I can double that. Urabe challenged. You're on. Wheeljack accepted. Meanwhile, Optimus and Zero's Barai stood on the cliffside above the base, observing their comrades attack. Lelouch chuckled in spite of himself. Toto was able to hold back the Britannians without a single nightmare. Now that he's got a unit himself, and he's working alongside us, I can't wait to see what kind of trouble we'd give Megatron. He is indeed a powerful warrior and a keen strategist. Optimus nodded. However, Lelouch, you are aware of what we must do if Suzaku does not wish to join. Do not get me wrong, I am hoping he does, but I have seen far too many times how far a pure soul can fall. Lelouch winced. Yeah, I know. But, for Nunnally's sake, I hope he listens. Back at the docks, the group of Britannians and Decepticons could see the smoke from the base even from their location. What in the scrap is going on over there? Skywarp questioned. We've received confirmation that headquarters is under the attack of the Black Knights and the Autobots. One Britannian officer reported, alarming much of the group. The bots and BKs are here. Awesome. Gino pumped his fist, only for Monica and Nonette to both elbow him into the sides. Oh, I mean, that's terrible. He tried to correct himself. Starscream tried to contact the Nemesis. Soundwave, we need reinforcements immediately. However, he only got static in response. Soundwave. They must be jamming us. Thundercracker deduced. We did point out the poor safety and strategic position this island had. Anya pointed out stoically. Maybe we should withdraw back to the settlement. Cecile offered. Negative. Dreadwing countered. Without access to the rest of our forces, we can't arrange a proper escort. The enemy could easily capture the sub-viceroy. Yuffie, everything is going to be okay, I promise. Nonette placed her hands on the princess's shoulders in comfort and assurance. We won't let any harm come to you, your majesty. Suzaku added. However, Euphemia was far from scared. No, Suzaku. I want you, Nonette, and the other knights of the round to help these men fend off the attack. Dreadwing, you should accompany them as well. You will do no such thing. Starscream exclaimed. Kururugi is already on thin ice as it is. I will not risk sending a liability such as him into the battlefield, especially against an enemy that he has not once bested. Ah, you do realize you're criticizing a member of royalty, right, Starscream? Lloyd put in. It's Commander. Starscream exclaimed. And I do not care if she is royalty. Euphemia has no say in this matter. The hell she doesn't. Nonette stepped up. She's still a princess and has the right to make the call on whether or not to send her knight into the battle if she wants. Starscream was about to retort when Dreadwing placed a firm hand on the Seeker's arm. Starscream, we cannot contact for reinforcements. It's logical that we use all the tools we have at our disposal. The lead Seeker growled as he reluctantly accepted. Very well, but take Thundercracker and Skywarp with you. I will not leave this to some lowly Britannians alone. Euphemia then looked at her knight. Sir Kururugi, demonstrate your valor for us today, so that we may finally silence all these naysayers, be they Britannian or Decepticon. Right. Suzaku nodded. The last of the Sutherlands appeared to have been cleared out as Bumblebee punched down one Sutherland and crushed its head with his foot to render it immobile. That's the last of them. However, the Gurren suddenly rushed past him to leap into the air, use its knife to bat away an incoming Harkin, which was shot by the Lancelot. The white and gold Nightmare was at the front, followed by the Galician, Tristian, Mordred, and Florence, followed by Dreadwing, Thundercracker, and Skywarp as they arrived in their respective vehicle modes before transforming and opened fire with their respective energon blasters, or cannon in Dreadwing's case. They're here, Ironhide stated as he attempted to return fire. Proceed to Phase 2. Holy swords, time to disappear. Toto ordered as his Gekka, along with the 4 comrades of his, released their chaff smoke to create a large smokescreen and blind the entire group of knights and cons. The Lancelot was among the first to drive out of the smoke when a powerful energon blast was shot near its feet. Suzaku looked through the Lancelot's screen as it zoomed directly toward Optimus and Zero, who stood right outside his Barai. Zero, Optimus, there you are. Suzaku's eyes narrowed. They're getting away. Monica exclaimed as the last of the smoke cleared out. Toto and the Holy Swords were nowhere to be seen, but one group consisting of Bumblebee, RC, and Cliffjumper drove away in one direction from the base in their vehicle modes alongside the Red Gurren, while another group consisting of Ironhide, Bulkhead, and Wheeljack in their vehicle modes drove in the opposite direction alongside the Blue Gekka. Weinberg, Enneagram, you and Thundercracker proceed after one group. Dreadwing ordered. Skywarp, you take Alstrime and Krushevsky and pursue the other. Kururugi, you are with me. We're going after Prime and Zero. Yes, sir. All the knights replied at the same time, as the 2 Seekers said nothing and they each split off in their respective directions, with the 3 Decepticons transforming into their respective jet modes. Back at the docks, while Euphemia was with the Camelot division inside their vehicle, Starscream paced on the ground impatiently as he voiced his thoughts aloud. Why we continue to work these imbeciles is beyond me. Their constant arguing and bickering is getting on my last nerve. Britannia is incredibly prideful, unfortunately. A new voice contacted Starscream through his comms, much to the Seeker's shock. Who is this? Oh, forgive me, where are my manners? My name is Second Prince Schneizel L. Britannia, and Prime Minister of the Britannian Empire. How did you get this frequency? The enemy has been jamming our long-ranged communications. Starscream stated. Perhaps, but I'm already within range of the island. Schneizel replied calmly. It seems the enemy didn't account for any communications short-term. Starscream rolled his optics. I already have 2 royal headaches to deal with, I do not need another. Just hear me out, Commander Starscream. Schneizel maintained his calm demeanor. I believe I may have a plan to remove Zero and a good portion of the Autobots from the equation. The backstabbing Decepticon only sighed as he had a feeling this, Schneizel, wouldn't leave him alone until he talked about his plan. What did you have in mind? Thundercracker flew above the canopy as he spotted the vehicle modes of Ironhide, Bulkhead, and Wheeljack alongside the Gekka pre-production. The enemy is making its way toward Area Point 7. Move in and intercept. Roger. Gino and Nonette said simultaneously as the Tristian and Galatian both suddenly flipped out of the canopy to land in front of the Wreckers and Ironhide, seemingly blocking their path as Thundercracker transformed and landed alongside the Knights of 3 and 9. They got nowhere to go, Nonette stated as Gino and Thundercracker smirked triumphantly. The Gurren took the lead in front of Bumblebee, RC, and Cliffjumper's vehicle modes. Colin's radar picked up an incoming projectile as she shot her Surger forward to create a wave of destructive energy that intercepted the missile that was shot by the hovering Skywarp as he flew above the Mordred and Florence. Enemy units have been cornered, Anya reported. Zero's Barai and Optimus vehicle mode both drove off in separate directions once they reached the beach area. Dreadwing, I'll go after Zero, Suzaku told his partner as he pursued the Black Nightmare in the Lancelot. Understood, I'll deal with the Prime. Dreadwing flew in his jet mode to intercept Optimus. Suzaku saw the path the Barai was taking. He's not equipped for that sand he jumped into. Could he be drawing me into a setup, using himself as bait? Doesn't matter. He doesn't have the Autobots to protect him this time. The Lancelot shot a slash Harken from its right wrist to block Zero's path as the Lancelot landed in front of it. Both black and white nightmares stood in a pit as the Lancelot drew its MVS and pointed it at the Barai's face. Zero, Suzaku scowled. I've got you, Ratchet. Now, Zero ordered. With that order, a ring of generators shot out of the sand around the pit and generated a wave that traveled along the ground and into the pit, shooting both the Barai and Lancelot with a nightmare that rendered them immobilized. What the? Suzaku exclaimed as nearly all the power in his nightmare went dead and the controls would no longer work. It's frozen. At the same time, another ring of generators shot up around Thundercracker, the Galatian, and Tristian before the same kind of energy surge shot from them. The two Britannian nightmares were both frozen as their systems went offline, while Thundercracker himself became completely frozen in place. Fortunately, though, Ironhide and the Wrecker trio had backed away from the rings as they emerged, so they were doing just fine. It worked, Ironhide stated. What's going on? My nightmare won't move. Gino tried to get his controls working. It's frozen, Nonette exclaimed. I can't even get communications online. Her eyes suddenly widened. Just like with that immobilizer thing Arachnid used on us. Did the Autobots and Black Knights find a way to replicate its power? Monica wondered aloud, coming to the same conclusion as well, as the frozen Skywarp fell on top of her Florence as well as the Mordred, knocking all three of them down in the middle of the ring of generators as Bumblebee, RC, Cliffjumper, and the Gurren remained outside the ring. All systems are completely inoperable. I cannot move, Anya said stoically. We can see you guys are all tied up right now, so we'll be on our way. Cliffjumper snarked as his, RC, and Bumblebee's vehicle modes drove away alongside the Gurren. Kururugi. Dreadwing turned around in his jet mode, breaking off his chase from Optimus, to try and fly to help his friend. However, this proved to be a mistake as Optimus transformed and wielded the immobilizer itself. He aimed and shot it at Dreadwing, scoring a direct hit, freezing the Decepticon as he fell and landed hard on the sand. Dreadwing, forgive me, Optimus said as he passed by and joined the large group consisting of his fellow Autobots, 4 Holy Swords, and other Black Knights as they surrounded the pit, remaining outside the rig of generators that kept the Lancelot and Barai frozen. No matter what Suzaku did, the controls wouldn't respond. No good. We need to talk, Kururugi. Zero said as he stood up from his Barai's cockpit. I suggest you come out, your secondary systems should still be functioning. I promise, no harm will come to you, I only want to talk, nothing more. I don't care. Tell Suzaku, Nonette, and the others to abandon their units. Euphemia exclaimed to Lloyd and Cecile. What can possibly be wrong with them? Why can't they move? Why can't we even talk to them? Something's happened to the Sakuradite that's powering all their nightmares. Cecile informed. Though the one affecting the Lancelots isn't as strong as the others, it still won't move either. A Gefgen disturber, Lloyd said in an unusually grave tone. You mean? Cecile exclaimed. But they're actually using it as a jamming mechanism. Lloyd continued. I thought it only theoretical, but it seems the Autobots have proven me wrong. It really is Urakshata. The Ark, the bridge. It worked, Ratchet stated as he had remotely activated all 3 traps at once. The Lancelot and the other Britannian nightmares have been immobilized. We've even managed to neutralize Thundercracker, Skywarp, and Dreadwing. Fix-It reported. Of course, it worked. Rakshata said as she sat casually on her couch in the living quarters of the bridge, with Shirley and Kagaya standing beside her. That immobilizer device is really fascinating. For a bunch of evil alien warmongers, the Decepticons come up with such fascinating toys. But Suzaku, Gino, Anya, and Monica are all okay, right? Shirley asked with concern. Yes, they are. Fix-It reported. The Gefgen disturber only affects Cybertronians and electrical-based machines, it has no effect on organic life. That's good. Shirley breathed a sigh of relief. But of course, the disturber unit around the Lancelot is much weaker. Rakshata added. That one can't affect Cybertronians like the other two. Why? Shirley asked. It's for Lelouch's own protection. Ratchet answered. If he can't get Suzaku to come with us, willingly, the Autobots can still step in and protect him. As much as it pains me to admit it, if we can't bring Suzaku back to the Ark as our guest, we'll have to take him as our prisoner. Shirley looked down at that particular thought, but her thoughts were brought to an end by Kagaya as she put a hand on the older girl's shoulder. Don't worry Shirley, that's where you and I come in. If Lelouch can't convince Suzaku to leave the Decepticons, then we'll do it. I'm his cousin, and you're his friend from school. If he's willing to listen to anyone, it's you. That caused the schoolgirl turned Black Knight to smile as she formed a determined look on her face. Yes, if I can help Lulu, Suzaku, and Optimus, even a little bit, I'll do it. Don't worry Suzaku, I can help you. I want to help you. Suzaku lowered himself from the Lancelot's cockpit via its cable as Zero had already done the same while keeping his pistol trained on him. Though he had rubber bullets loaded in as the last thing he wanted to do was kill his best friend. I'll get straight to the point, Suzaku Kururugi, I want you to join us. Zero told him. Is that a threat? Suzaku responded. Well you can forget it. I already told you, results gained through contemptible means are worthless to me. So, would you call the actions of the Decepticons to be honorable? Zero asked. You've already seen that most, if not all, only have their own interests as their first priority. Can you honestly tell me that a chronic backstabber like Starscream, or a serial killer like Arachnid, are honorable warriors? Suzaku had no response to give but refused to lighten his glare. I'm assuming Megatron told you he's some kind of freedom fighter. Did he tell you that the Autobots destroyed Cybertron? Zero continued. No. Cybertron was destroyed because both sides refused to quit fighting. Suzaku replied. Because Optimus Prime refused to listen to Megatron. You're wrong. Zero told him. Optimus was the one to try to reach out to Megatron, to stop the fighting himself. But Megatron refused to listen. He may preach unity to you, but really, he's nothing more than a warmonger who only seeks power. All he had to do was say a few words and it seems that enough was to secure your loyalty to him, which it makes me wonder if you're really a knight to Princess Euphemia. Let me ask you, Kururugi, did Megatron order you to spy on Princess Euphemia? Perhaps use her as a hostage to keep the Britannian masses in line. Suzaku could not believe that Zero would suggest such a thing. What? No. I'm not using Princess Euphemia. I am her knight. So, which is it? Are you a knight for Britannia or a Decepticon? Zero asked. You've already seen the signs that their so-called alliance is beginning to crumble. So when the shots are fired, which one would you side with? Your princess or your master? Suzaku tried to come up with an answer but couldn't. To be honest with you, I'm rather worried for Euphemia. Zero's words caught his attention. I met her during the hotel jacking, she risked her own life to save those innocent hostages. That act alone proved she was a selfless soul, one I was honored to meet. Of course, she's selfless. Suzaku replied. I told you and Optimus that Britannia can change for the better, and she can help bring that change. Perhaps you're right. Zero admitted. I'm not blind to the fact that there are those among Britannia that want to things change. However, have you ever considered those within Britannia that don't want it to change? I can change their minds though. Suzaku stated. That's why I became a Britannian soldier. But what if they do something you disagree with? What if Euphemia were to ask you to do something you couldn't do, hypothetically? Zero questioned further. Would you refuse her order? Or do something that would endanger her life? No. I already told you I'm her knight. I would never do anything to hurt her. Suzaku exclaimed. I'm sure that's what you thought about your father, before you ran that knife through his heart. Zero said, causing Suzaku's eyes to widen as his pupils shook with shock before he stumbled back. How on earth, do you know that? Kiyoshiro Todo told me everything. Zero said, surprising Suzaku. Optimus and the other Autobots know the truth, as do a small handful of Black Knights. They want to help you, I want to help you. You made a mistake and you want to find a way to atone, I understand that. But there are other ways to do it besides sacrificing your own life. You can work with us, you as well as Princess Euphemia. I've already opened the Black Knights to the possibility of that. We can show the people, not just of Japan, but the rest of the Earth that they have a chance at a bright future. That they can stand and fight the Decepticons. Fight them. Are you serious? Suzaku's eyes narrowed. A fight against the Decepticons is all but inevitable. Zero replied. Sooner or later, they will attack. I just want to see to it there is a force strong enough to defeat them. Otherwise, they'll run all of Earth into the ground just like they did Cybertron. It won't matter if you're Britannian, Japanese, or otherwise, all of humanity will suffer if Megatron has his way. Please, come with us, Suzaku. At the very least, come to our base so we can tell you our side of the story, what really happened to Cybertron. It's only fair that you listen to both sides, right? Suzaku honestly had no idea what to say. Was Zero really willing to listen to Euphemia? Did he actually convince the Autobots and Black Knights to do so? He found himself looking toward Optimus above the pit as the Autobot leader's eyes carried a calm, yet desperate pleading, within them. There was a part of Suzaku that actually did consider it, if only to hear their side of the story. However, his thoughts were interrupted by static transmissions in his communications device. Kururugi. Respond. Suzaku Kururugi, respond immediately. He heard Starscream attempting to contact him. May I? He asked Zero. Yes. Zero nodded. This is Major Kururugi. Suzaku answered the calls. This is your commander Starscream. Britannian forces have launched surface-to-surface missiles against the enemy. Kururugi, I am giving you the easiest assignment I can possibly give, keep Zero there. Do not let him leave, no matter what. Lelouch scowled underneath his mask as he also heard those orders. Damn you, Starscream. Immediately, Suzaku wrenched the gun from Zero's hand, grabbed him by the wrist and put him in a hold while keeping the gun trained on him. What are you? Zero struggled, but Suzaku's grip was too strong. I can't approve of your methods. Suzaku stated. However, he was stopped from going any further as Bumblebee leapt behind him and pointed his energon blaster at him. Let him go. Bumblebee exclaimed, even though Suzaku couldn't understand his bleeps, though he was surprised at how easily the yellow Autobot stepped into the field without getting frozen like the Lancelot. Wait, how can you? Starscream just launched surface-to-surface missiles at our coordinates. Zero exclaimed to the Autobots and Black Knights present. Be prepared to evacuate. Wait, Starscream, you can't do this. Euphemia exclaimed as she, Cecile, and Lloyd stepped outside the Camelot's transport. You're going to destroy the Lancelot. Lloyd exclaimed. I'm not the one who issued the launch for those missiles. Starscream smirked at them, specifically toward Euphemia. I'm just giving Suzaku a chance to be useful for once. And whose idea was this? Euphemia exclaimed. Major Kururugi is my personal knight. Your dear brother, Schneizel. Starscream sneered, causing Euphemia and Cecile to both gasp as even Lloyd looked in minor surprise. It seems there's at least one member of the royal family that can actually contribute, not unlike you or your insufferable sister. Euphemia clenched her fists as she ran past Starscream straight towards an empty Sutherland and prepared to board it. Princess Euphemia, what are you doing? Cecile exclaimed as she was already in the cockpit. Contact my brother and tell him to stop the attack. I'm going to get Suzaku myself. She was already inside and drove the Sutherland away. Once it was already gone, both Cecile and even Lloyd looked in shock to see Starscream actually laughing. Oh, this turning out to be better than I thought. But Starscream, if Princess Euphemia is caught in the attack. Cecile tried to speak to him. She's the one who's throwing her life away. Starscream sneered. And if she loses her life in the process, well, it means one less annoyance for me. Cecile gave a horrified gasp. You would willingly sacrifice Princess? Oh, don't look so surprised. Starscream stated. After all, it was the Emperor who sacrificed his children Lelouch and Nunnally when he took this pitiful country 7 years ago. As much as the royal family drives me up the wall, there is one thing I like about them, they're expendable. Nonette had used a knife to cut open the Galician's cockpit systems and hotwire the controls to force the cockpit to open as she crawled outside when she felt her own personal cell phone ring, much to her confusion. Hello, Nonette. Euphy. What's going? Suzaku's in trouble, Euphemia exclaimed. They've launched missiles at his location. I'm already on my way there. What? Euphy, you can't. I already am. Just please get here. Help me save Suzaku. I need you. Euphemia hung up. Euphy, damn it. Nonette cursed as she crawled from her frozen nightmare, and even the frozen Thundercracker's face. Hey, she heard Gino knocking from inside his Tristian's frozen cockpit. What's going on out there? Gino, I gotta go. Find a way to help Anya and Monica. She was already running as fast as she could to try and get to Suzaku and Euphemia. Multiple missiles incoming on their coordinates. Ratchet exclaimed as he saw them on the radar. Missiles. Shirley practically screamed, even Kagaya gave a gasp. Fix it, prepare multiple ground bridge extractions immediately. We're pulling them out, Ratchet stated as he tried to contact Optimus. I'm already on it, Fix-It said as he scrambled to try and access the remote control for the ground bridge. Missiles are already on top of us, Ironhide exclaimed as the Autobots and Black Knights readied their ammunition to shoot them down. All units, cover yourselves and be prepared to evacuate. Zero was able to wrench himself free from Suzaku, who tried to shoot at him with the gun, only for Bumblebee to block it with his arm as he stood in front of Zero. Suzaku, come with us right now. I can't, he exclaimed. I have to follow orders. And what of Euphemia? Are you willing to abandon her so easily? Zero practically screamed in frustration. I'm not abandoning her, Suzaku argued back. Viceroy Cornelia and the Knights of the Round are more than capable of protecting her. Not from Megatron, Zero exclaimed. Zero, hang on. Colin instinctively drove her Gurren into the Gefgen ring. Colin, wait. RC tried to stop her, but she was already inside, where her Gurren short-circuited. At the same time, Rai got out of his Gekka to try and get down there himself. Zero. Suzaku. He tried to call to them. Here they come, Ironhide exclaimed. Open fire. All the Autobots and Black Knights shot at the incoming missiles, throwing up a barrage of bullets and energon blasts. RC wanted to go down and help Colin, but Rai was already sliding down to try and get her, while also trying to help his friends. Suzaku. It's us. Rai and Colin. The white-haired Black Knight tried to call to him, but the gunfire and missile explosions drowned out his voice and even Colin's calls. Suzaku. Look at us. Look at your friends. The redhead called desperately. Euphemia piloted her Sutherland, trying to get to Suzaku as her heart pounded in her chest. Every instinct screaming at her to save him. Suzaku, you can't die now. Nonette was running through the woods as fast as she could. Euphy. Suzaku. She shouted as she came out into a clearing just at the top of a cliffside to arrive at the beach. A ground bridge portal opened in the area outside the ring. All units, enter the ground bridge now, Optimus ordered. However, before anyone could even make a move toward the portal, a large shadow loomed over the entire area, causing everybody, Autobot, Black Knight, and Britannian soldier to gasp as they saw it. It was a massive aircraft, though not nearly as big as the Ark or the Nemesis. It appeared large enough that it could hold a small army of nightmares. Most of the Black Knights and Autobots redirected their fire towards the craft, but some form of invisible barrier protected it from both nightmare ammunition and energon blasts. You gotta be scrapping kidding, Cliffjumper muttered. Euphemia's Sutherland just arrived as she stood up from the cockpit to see the vessel herself. That's my brother's Avalon, Schneizel. My god, Nonette breathed as she saw the ship as well. At the hull of the ship known as the Avalon, a large compartment opened to reveal something resembling a nightmare attached to it. Though its exact features were obscured by the shadows, it had a two-shoulder mounted cannons that each generated a large red light, preparing to fire. All Autobots, return to B immediately. Optimus ordered. All retrieve Zero and the others. But you must fall back now. Optimus. Toto tried to protest. That is an order, Optimus exclaimed as he slid down into the pit, behind Bumblebee and in front of the surprised Ryan Colin. "Suzaku, come with us now," Optimus exclaimed. "I can't. I have orders to keep you here. You can't leave," Suzaku exclaimed. "You stubborn fool." Zero yelled as instinct took over, his mask slit flashed open to reveal his left eye as his Geass sigil manifested. Live. Right as that command was given, the nightmare hooked inside the Avalon opened fire with a barrage of red energy projectiles that would level the entire area. And with everyone focused on the ship, nobody could see the smirking face of VV as he stood on a cliffside to observe everything. CC gave an audible gasp as she fell to her hands and knees in the Ashford clubhouse. Her face drenched in sweat as she felt a pulse in her forehead, the Geass emblem on her forehead glowing briefly. Somehow, she knew something was wrong and she knew exactly who was responsible. Versus V, what did you just do? Island of gods and monsters. Ray's eyes flickered open as the first things he saw were birds circling throughout the bright blue sky as he heard the sounds of the ocean's waves impacting the beach. Wah, where? Ray stuttered as he picked himself up, still in his blue pilot suit, looking around at his surroundings. He appeared to be on a tropical beach of sorts. What the heck? Ray. The amnesiac youth turned around in surprise to see the yellow Autobot scout kneeling down closer to his level. B. Ray tried to stand up. What happened? Where's everyone else and where the heck are we? I haven't the faintest idea. Bumblebee bleeped. I just came to, same as you. The white-haired Black Knight got another look at his surroundings. Something's telling me this isn't Shikini Island. 'Cause if it were, we'd be crawling with Britannian soldiers right now. Yeah, but that still doesn't answer how we even got here. Bumblebee said. Can't you just call for a ground bridge? Ray asked. I tried, but something's blocking my comlink. B explained. I can't get a signal. Scrap, Ray muttered, but his attention was caught by the sounds of movement in the bushes and trees nearby. Hang, I'm gonna check something out. He walked into the foliage to see what he could find. Ray was able to brush away some of the branches while also feeling his person to see if he had any weapons on him. Turns out he still had a pocket knife, but that was about it. The sounds he heard had suddenly stopped, which surprised him. He stopped moving, not making any sounds as to not alert whatever it was that was also in this foliage with him. It could be just a wild animal, or a fellow Black Knight that got stuck with him and B, or even an enemy soldier. Soon, he got his answer when a hand shot out of a nearby bushes to grab him by the shoulder and pull him deeper into the foliage, throwing him across the ground. Ray was quick to draw his knife as his opponent tackled him to the ground. Though he tried to thrust the knife forward, a hand blocked his own arm and pinned him to the ground as he looked in surprise to see the face of his attacker was none other than Nonette Enneagram. Nonette glared at the young Black Knight, however, once she saw his face, her pupils shrank. Kaiserin. What? Ray questioned in surprise. Before this could escalate any further, a large shadow loomed over the pair as Nonette gasped upon seeing Bumblebee loom over her with his energon blasters primed and ready. Get off him. Now. Nonette's surprise gave Ray an opening to kick her back and off of him, the force sending her back to a nearby tree, hitting the back of her head in the process and knocking her unconscious. Ray stood up and looked in surprise. Hey, isn't she a knight of the round? He asked his Autobot comrade. Yeah, the Knight of 9 I think. Bumblebee confirmed. A surprised smile fell on Ray's face. We just captured a knight of the round. Not bad for a completely random situation, huh? Suzaku, who had also woken up on the same island, had begun to scale a small cliffside so he could get a better view of his new surroundings. Just as I thought, this is another island. He muttered to himself. Kururugi. The youth turned in surprise to see just down below him was arguably the only Decepticon whom he could truly consider a comrade. Dreadwing. What are you doing here? Suzaku asked as he appeared to be at a height that actually put him above the Decepticon seeker. I could ask you the same thing. Dreadwing said. The last thing I recall was being immobilized. Though I was frozen, I could see and hear everything around me, including that large vessel that attempted to bombard the area. After that, I woke up here, completely functional. Is there any way we can contact headquarters? Suzaku asked. I lost the comm and the Lancelot's nowhere in sight. I've tried, but my communications seem jammed. Dreadwing answered. But perhaps we can simply fly back. He attempted to transform, and though his wings twitched, he still remained in his Cybertronian form, much to his and Suzaku's confusion. What? He attempted to transform again but was unable to. My T-Cog. Your, T what? Suzaku didn't seem to understand. It is the organ that allows Cybertronians to scan vehicles and transform. Dreadwing explained. Perhaps it is still suffering the effects of my immobilization. So, you can't transform? Suzaku asked. It does not appear to be an option at the moment, no. Dreadwing confirmed. I apologize. It's fine, Suzaku assured. There's a waterfall up here, I'm gonna see if I can get some water. He resumed his climb. I will be with you shortly. Dreadwing told his young friend as Suzaku had already climbed his way to the top. The honorary Britannian made his way through the foliage, following the sound of falling water. Once he saw the waterfall, his eyes widened in surprise at the sight of a certain red-haired young woman, bathing naked in the waterfall. He recognized her almost instantly. Colin, it can't be. Colin heard some noises behind her and turned around to see a familiar face. Suzaku. Her eyes widened as she quickly went on the defensive, pulling out her black night jacket to cover herself. This took Suzaku even further by surprise. A black knight uniform. You mean you're a... Colin took out the knife from her jacket's pocket and attempted to rush the surprised and confused Suzaku, however her path was barred by a large metallic foot that stomped in front of her and she fell backwards into the water, her jacket covering her body as she looked up in surprise to see the Decepticon standing above her. I wouldn't attempt such a thing if you value your life. Dreadwing warned her. However, Colin wasn't completely frozen by fear as she attempted to get up and run, only for Suzaku to grab her by the wrists and pin her down to the ground in the shallow water. Colin, I don't believe this. You know her? Dreadwing asked in surprise. Yeah, she's my classmate. Colin Statfelt. Don't call me by that name. My name is Colin Kazuki. I'm Japanese. That took both Suzaku and Dreadwing by surprise. You're kidding, then you really are. Suzaku stuttered. Yes, I'm a Black Knight, an ally of the Autobots. I'm not going to hide that anymore. Colin confirmed with a steely glare. Suzaku was the first to steal his resolve as well. Well then, Colin Kazuki, I'm placing you under arrest for conspiracy and rebellion against Britannia. Zero stood on a large rock over the shoreline as he and Optimus Prime observed their new area. The vegetation and climate are the same as Shikini Island, we can't be that far from it. Zero said. But without access to any communications, we lack a means of calling for assistance. Optimus pointed out. So ground bridge is out of the question then. Zero said with a small tisk under his mask. You can still transform, can't you? He asked the Autobot leader. Optimus briefly transformed his right hand into a blade and into an ion blaster before it went back to a normal hand. Yes, I am still able to. I suppose we'll just have to drive back to the Ark. Zero said as he gave a small chuckle. Actually driving in a truck underwater, if you asked me if something like that was possible a year ago, I wouldn't believe it. Optimus had a small smirk on his face, however both he and Zero heard some movement from the bushes nearby. They both turned around to see a face that made Lelouch gasp underneath his mask. Euphemia walked onto the beach but gave a surprised gasp as she not only saw the masked revolutionary, but even the leader of the Autobots stand before her. Nonette woke up with a small groan, however as she regained conciseness, she felt her hands had been restrained behind her back, having been tied with some vines. Have a nice nap. She looked in surprise to see both Rye and Bumblebee sitting across from her on the beach they had previously woken up on. Though the Knight of Nine was surprised to be this close to an Autobot, and without a nightmare no less, she was even more stunned at the sight of the white-haired young man in front of her. Kaiserin, is it really you? Who the hell are you talking about? My name is Rye. What? But that's not, Nonette muttered as she got a good look at him. You look the same. How? It's been more than 7 years. And yet, you look like you haven't aged a day. Rye only looked more confused as he glanced up at Bumblebee who only shrugged his shoulders. What are you talking about? What do you mean? You don't recognize me? The Knight of Nine asked. Your name is Nonette Enneagram, you're the Knight of Nine, part of that old bastard Charles's personal entourage and the pilot of that blue knockoff Lancelot. Rye summarized nonchalantly. It's hard not to know you since you're pretty famous. You really don't know me. Nonette stuttered as she seemed emotionally hurt as she looked down. I see, you don't remember. Amnesia, I guess. Hey Rai, it kinda sounds like she knows you. Bumblebee bleeped. I'm pretty sure I'd remember one of the Emperor's lapdogs. Rai commented. Well, maybe she knew you before you lost your memories. I mean, a lot can happen since the start of your life, right? B assumed. Maybe, but I'm not really about to trust her, not without proof. Rai said as Nonette simply hung her head down, so that neither he nor the Autobot could see the tears that formed in her eyes. But they weren't just tears of sadness, they were also that of joy as well, joy that she finally found her prince again. Colin meanwhile had been allowed to put her red pilot suit back on to allow her some form of decency as her hands were tied behind her back as Suzaku put her black night jacket over her shoulders while Dreadwing stood over both of them. I see, and you don't know what happened either. Suzaku said. When you came to, you found yourself on this island, is that right? What do you mean? You can just fly out of here, right? Colin grunted as she cast a glare at the Decepticon present. Due to unusual circumstances, I am unable to transform. Dreadwing informed. Colin actually snickered with a smirk. So, you're grounded. What's wrong, Con? We clipped your poor little wings. Serves you right. Dreadwing stomped his foot down as he glared at the young woman. Do not try me, Black Knight. Were up to me, I would leave your lifeless husk on this island. Go ahead and do it. Colin dared him, not remotely intimidated by his presence. I'd rather die free as a warrior, than live as your personal plaything, Decepticon. You're not going to be anyone's plaything, Colin. Suzaku told her. Tell that to your new buddy, Arachnid. She glared at him, which earned a glare from both Suzaku and Dreadwing. Or better yet, why don't you save your temper tantrums for when my friends get here? You two idiots won't last 10 seconds before you're thrown behind bars. You mean to say the Autobots and your fellow Black Knights will come for you? Dreadwing inquired. Without a doubt. Colin smirked. Alright, but before they do, tell us something. Who is Zero? Suzaku asked. Figure it out for yourself. Colin said as she looked away. It would be wiser if you told us and avoid less civil methods of interrogation. Dreadwing informed. You mean torture? Colin scoffed before she glanced at Suzaku. You've really fell in with a bad crowd, haven't you, Kururugi? And I don't just mean Britannia. Why do you follow them? Zero and Optimus? Suzaku asked. I don't know. Why do you follow Megatron? Colin shot back. Zero slid down the rocks as he stood on equal level with his half-sister as she continued to stare at him. Though at first she was intimidated by the appearance of Optimus Prime that stood behind the masked revolutionary, once her eyes set on him, that seemed to be all she could focus on at the moment. Optimus said nothing as he took a few steps back to allow Lelouch to think on his own what to do. What would Lelouch even say to her, he wondered to himself as his mask hid the conflicted look on his face. This was the first time he ever saw Euphemia face to face since before his exile, not including the hotel jacking. He remembered how close he and Nunnally were to her before being sent to Japan. She was one of his best friends alongside Cornelia. But what would he say to her now? Should he reveal himself? He could use his Geass on her like he did Cornelia, but he quickly pushed that thought back as that was the last thing he wanted to do to her. Lelouch. She spoke, interrupting his thoughts, though it took both him and Optimus by surprise. Lelouch, it's you, isn't it? I haven't told anyone about you, I swear. Please, let me see your face. Optimus cast a concerning glance towards his young friend as after a minute of silence, Zero reached up to his mask to remove it, allowing the pink-haired princess to see the face of her half-brother, which was fully revealed once he removed his face mask. Upon seeing his face again, Euphemia wasted no time in running toward him and wrapping her arms around his body as she cried tears of pure joy. Lelouch was stunned by this at first, before he let his own emotions flow as he embraced her back, a few stray tears fell down his eyes as well. Such a heartwarming moment was enough for Optimus to give a smile as he witnessed this touching reunion. I've missed you so much. Euphy cried. Lelouch tightened his grip. I've missed you too. Shikini Island. Multiple Britannian soldiers, both in and out of nightmares, continued their search for their missing princess, and have thus found nothing. Thundercracker and Skywarp appeared to be part of the search as they scanned the entire island from their vehicle modes, having been freed of the immobilization effects thanks to Knockout. The entire search was being oversaw by the red Decepticon and his partner, the latter looking more annoyed than anything. "Can't believe we had to come out here and look for some stupid little fleshy." Breakdown muttered. "We got better things to do." True, but the sudden disappearance of Dreadwing, Kururugi, not to mention Zero and Prime is something that should be looked at. Knockout said as he scanned the area with a handheld device. Doesn't seem like there's any residual energon traces, so there wasn't a ground bridge. But, there is an unusual energy reading in this area. It appears that, right before the Avalon's bombardment, something happened that just caused certain bots and humans to vanish. And it wasn't a ground bridge. Breakdown asked, to which Knockout shook his head in confirmation. The large Decepticon ran a hand down his face. "I hate it when things get complicated." Meanwhile, the floating ship that was known as the Avalon, the same transport that had bombarded the area the previous day, hovered over the beach. Inside the ship's main hangar, the Lancelot, Galatian, Mordred, Tristian, and Florence had been recovered, with Cecile sitting on the staircase that led the Lancelot's cockpit as she looked over the data from not only the Lancelot but also the other 4 nightmares present. "So, what, Suzaku and Nonette just vanished?" Gino asked as he and his fellow knights of the round were also present. "Without a trace," Anya said emotionlessly as she was at her own personal handheld electronic diary. "You've checked the Lancelot's data?" Monica asked Cecile. "Maybe security footage?" "Yes, Lady Khrushchevsky, but it's all static." Cecile answered. "There's no way to trace Suzaku or anyone else who was there." Before anyone could ask any further questions, the hangar doors behind them opened as they saw an incoming fighter jet slow its approach. Once it entered into the hangar, it transformed to reveal the Decepticon's second in command, who could only just barely fit. Why do humans always make everything so compact?" Starscream groaned in annoyance. "Well, look who decided to join us." Monica glared with Cecile and Gino. Though Anya didn't glare, she gave a distrustful look towards the Seeker. "And just what are all of you looking at?" Starscream glared back. "Oh, how about the fact you ordered an airstrike on Suzaku, Nonette, and Princess Euphemia?" Gino exclaimed in a rare sight of anger. "I did not make that order," Starscream stated. "I only followed through with it. But you didn't even attempt to warn them that Princess Euphemia would be in the way," Cecile stated as she stood up to glare at him. "You didn't even care that a member of the royal family would be caught in the crossfire." "Oh please, that wretched Cornelia puts her life on the line every day." Starscream brushed off. "The royal family is expendable, even to their precious emperor." Before anyone could voice an argument, a new voice spoke up. "Though I don't necessarily agree with the tone, it is sad for me to admit this is true." The voice belonged to none other than Prince Schneizel, a young man with blonde hair, light purple eyes, and a royal white outfit. "My father isn't necessarily one to bat an eye even at his children's deaths." Prince Schneizel, Monica stated in surprise as she, Anya, and Gino both bowed before the prince as Lloyd causally walked onto the scene as well. Prince Schneizel, here." Cecile stuttered in surprise. "You impudent little, how dare you look down upon the second prince of the empire?" Bartley exclaimed as he appeared as well. "General Bartley." Cecile lost her footing and slid down the stairs to land on her rear on the ground, much to Starscream's amusement. "That goes for you too, metallic abomination," Bartley stated to Starscream specifically. "How dare you look down upon Prince Schneizel? You do realize I can only look down upon him due to being physically taller." Starscream snarked, much to Bartley's irritation. "Oh, and speak to me in such a tone again." He extended his claws and loomed over the fat general, whose expression changed from irritation to fear. "I will squash you like the insect you are, vermin. Now, there's no need to be so hostile with one another," Schneizel said as he helped up Cecile. "You are not injured, I hope." "Yes, I am Prince Schneizel El Britannia." He then looked up toward the Decepticon. "And you must be Commander Starscream, First Lieutenant of the Decepticons. It's a pleasure to finally meet you." "Yes, it is your pleasure." Starscream smirked, much to Gino, Anya, and Monica's irritation, though Bartley seemed more irritable. "To take such a tone to our prince. General, you're quite the devoted subject, aren't you?" Lloyd asked casually. "Primarily, because the prince is the one who commuted my sentence and saved me from being chained up deep beneath Temple Tower," Bartley said. So Starscream, what do you think of the Avalon? Lloyd asked the Decepticon. Have the Decepticons ever invented their own floating aircraft carriers? Starscream scoffed. Please. We've developed entire warships more advanced than this. When you invent a vessel that enables you to fly through space, then we'll talk. I'll be sure to make a note. Schneizel said. Now, Commander Starscream, if you don't mind, there is something that I would like your assistance with. Oh, Starscream wondered. A Britannian prince is actually asking for help. Are you certain you're related to that wretched Cornelia? How dare. Bartley was about to protest, but the second prince raised his hand to prevent any outbursts. I understand how you may feel, Commander Starscream. Schneizel continued. My sister does have a strong sense of pride. But I would thank you not to compare all of us. My team and I have located an unusual find, and we've been unable to find anything worth value with our own resources. However, given how the Decepticons have more advanced resources of our own, it would make sense to ask for help. Wouldn't you agree? An intrigued look fell on Starscream's face. Very well, provide me the coordinates and I shall assemble my Decepticons and meet you there. Of course, I thank you. Schneizel gave a bow. Sir Weinberg, Lady Alstrheim, Lady Kruszewski, I would ask that you please continue your search for my sister as well as Sir Kururugi and Lady Enneagram. He began to walk away with Bartley. Yes, help them out to Cecile. It's so hard to find devisers like that young man. Especially after yesterday's exploits, Lloyd said as he joined them. Hold on a minute, did you know Suzaku would be there? Monica questioned as she, Gino, and Anya stood up. Did the prince order him to be killed? Along with Nonette and Princess Euphemia. Silence. Bartley warned. Not even Knights of the Round should question royalty. Despite that, however, Schneizel chose to give an answer. Those orders were indeed mine, Lady Kruszewski. I also fired the Hadron. Though I wasn't aware Euphemia and Lady Enneagram would be present as well, but that's no excuse. Even in a situation like that, priorities mustn't be forgotten. The Empire currently faces arguably its most dangerous adversaries. I saw an opportunity to eliminate their leadership and I choose to take it. Besides, if something anomalous happened, we would have been unable to rescue any of them. That's what I gambled on. I see. Monica seemed to accept that response as she shared a concerning glance with Gino and Anya. I'm sorry I spoke out of turn. No, you were worried for your friends as well as the third princess. Schneizel replied. It's my fault for not protecting my subordinates, or even my own sister. Can you ever forgive me? Those were the last words he said before leaving with Bartley and Lloyd. Starscream followed suit as he jumped out the hangar doors before transforming and flying away. However, despite the tone Schneizel carried, Starscream was able to recognize something of an ambitious undertone in the second prince's voice. And it reminded him of his own. Needless to say, Starscream was rather intrigued. Though both Cornelia and Euphemia drove him up the wall, perhaps this Schneizel could be useful. At the same time, a ground bridge portal had opened up on a large hilltop on Shikini Island, allowing Megatron and Soundwave to step outside as they stood at the top of a cliffside to oversee the area where the action had taken place the previous day. So, this is where it happened. The leader of the Decepticons asked his silent comrade, who nodded in response. And you're unable to get a fix on Dreadwing's signal. Or even from the badge we gave Kururugi. Soundwave shook his head. Though he quickly deployed Laserbeak which began to hover over and scan the area, the readings were brought up on Soundwave's visor which he showed Megatron. An unusual energy signature, Megatron noticed. And yet, it seems rather familiar, based on Shockwave's findings. So, you finally stepped out into the open. Both the master of the Decepticons and the silent surveillance chief turned around to see a familiar-looking boy approach them with a smirk on his face. The high and mighty Megatron finally makes his appearance. VV said in a snarky tone. It's been quite some time, hasn't it? Victor. Megatron observed with minor surprise. Back from the dead. And not a day older from the looks of it. I finally got your attention. VV said to Megatron, not remotely intimidated by him. And all it took was the sudden disappearance of your own enemy. So, you're aware of what has transpired? Megatron asked, sounding rather intrigued. VV smirked, believing he had him right where he wanted him. More than that, I know where Optimus Prime is. And not just him, but even one of his most beloved Autobots, 2 elite Black Knights, that annoying Zero, and even 2 of your favorite soldiers, Suzaku and Dreadwing. I know exactly where they are. Megatron glanced at Soundwave, who checked over VV's voice through his recordings and saw that there was no deception indicated. He was telling the truth. I imagine you have a lot of questions, Megatron. The arrogant immortal boy continued. And I'd be willing to answer some of them. But you have to do something for me. Is that so? Megatron's eyes narrowed as he did not like the tone VV was carrying. Yes. VV nodded. If you do one little favor for me, I'll give you Optimus, Zero, and a small handful of your enemies, as well as the locations of 2 of your favorite soldiers. You'll finally have a chance to rid this universe of your greatest enemy. I just want a small favor from you, that's all. So, what do you say? Do we have a deal? The immortal boy had it all figured out. He knows nothing of Geass, so seeing me as young as before is enough to keep him perplexed and get his attention. And since I'm the only one who knows where his beloved nemesis is, he'll have no choice but to listen to me. I'll use his resources to grab CC and use the thought elevator to teleport both of us back to the Geass order where Charles, myself, and that traitor can finally begin Ragnarok. He has no way of tracing the order, we saw to it. His smirk only grew. Now that I know the location of Optimus and Lelouch, he's putty in my hands. However, Megatron did something that VV could not have expected. He aimed his fusion cannon and fired on the immortal boy, reducing him to a charred crisp that appeared dead. Code R's experiments indicated that the immortal known as CC is hundreds of years old and is unable to age, correct? Megatron asked Soundwave, who only nodded in response. Contact Shockwave, tell him to meet me on the Nemesis immediately. I have a special project in mind for him, he said as he picked up VV's charred corpse. Meanwhile, back on the mysterious island, Euphemia had removed her clothes that had been soaking wet as she allowed them to dry in the sun. Lelouch had provided his cape to her to gain some form of cover as he sat on the rock behind her, with Optimus next to him. When did you figure it out? He asked her. Back during the hotel jacking. Euphemia answered. Somehow, I just knew. But I wasn't 100% sure till now. I see, I guess I should be saying thanks for not telling anyone. Lelouch replied. Euphemia, if I may. Optimus spoke. Why haven't you told anyone? The young princess was slightly startled at Optimus addressing her, but not because she was intimidated. There was something in the tone of his voice that indicating he was speaking to her as an equal, and not talking down to her like what most Decepticons have done. Even though she only met him, hearing the voice of Optimus Prime made her feel relaxed and safe, even as she gave her answer. For one, Cornelia doesn't usually listen to me. Besides that, I think things are depressing enough as they are. Euphemia then addressed her brother. Lelouch, is Nunnally. She's living with me, but she's still blind and crippled. Lelouch answered. Does she know about you? About you being Zero and, with the Autobots? Euphy asked. No, not yet. Lelouch responded with a grimace. I've been wanting to tell her, but something always seems to get in the way, it's starting to become rather annoying. Lelouch, I'm so sorry, Euphemia stuttered as her voice began to crack. Sorry for what? Lelouch asked as he craned his head back in her direction. For so much, for everything, she continued to stutter, tears forming in her eyes. For what happened to Nunnally, your mother, your exile, all of it. The hatred you must feel for us. For our father, not for you. Lelouch quickly said, surprising Euphemia as even Optimus raised a curious eyebrow. Even after Nunnally and I were exiled, I never hated you, Euphy, not once. But, after seeing how much Clovis and Cornelia had changed, I admit I was scared that you weren't the same person I remember. But, after seeing what you did in the hotel jacking, standing up to the terrorists to defend the weak, I felt so relieved, knowing that you were that same girl I used to play all the time with. Though she couldn't see it, Lelouch gave his half-sister a smile. You're still my sister, Euphy, and I love you. Euphemia could not contain her tears of joy as they fell down her eyes almost like a waterfall. Oh Lelouch. Optimus Prime couldn't help but smile as well. He had heard from Lelouch how close he and Euphemia were in their childhood and was pleased to see it how easy the two were able to mend their bond. Optimus Prime, Yuffie tried to wipe her eyes as she glanced in his direction, though her emotional smile was still present on her face. Thank you so much for looking after my brother. Of course. Optimus nodded with an assuring smile. Lelouch himself smiled at this small exchange. A part of him had hoped Yuffie would take a liking to Optimus. He was a true father figure to him, and he hoped he could be one for her. A father that she deserved, unlike their biological father. Yuffie's stomach gave a light groan, causing her to blush in embarrassment. I believe feeling relieved has made me hungry. Several fish on sticks hung over the fire that Rai had made as he, Bumblebee, and the imprisoned Nonette sat around it. The fish already appeared nice and crisp. Looks about ready. Rai commented. I could have caught some fish, if you wanted. Bumblebee offered. Really? Rai offered a smirk to the yellow Autobot. Fish get scared at the sight of a human, how are they gonna handle a giant robot who's about 10 times the size? Point taken. Bumblebee nodded as he saw Rai bite down on the fish. The white-haired Black Knight looked at Nonette briefly before he sighed. He offered a separate fish on a stick to her. Here, have a bite. She looked up in surprise. What? Can't have a starving prisoner. I'm not a Britannian soldier. Despite the subtle insult, Nonette smiled as she bit down on the fish Rai held in front of her. He wasn't planning on untying her. Not bad. Sorry, but being stranded on a small island isn't exactly 5-star restaurant material. Rai joked slightly, causing Nonette to snicker. I always hate those places anyway, they're so stuck up. She responded. Personally, I would be fine with just a plain grilled cheese. A knight of the round who's okay with commoner food. Never thought I'd see the day. Rai chuckled. Nonette gave a small sigh with a smile. So, his name's B? He asked, referring to the Autobot. Bumblebee, and yeah, Rai confirmed, his smile fading. Why does he only speak in bleep? Nonette asked. That's personal, Rai said immediately, causing Nonette to look away. Sorry. At the same time, Suzaku had managed to pull some fish out of the pond he was at. Impressive, Dreadwing noted as he sat close to the bound Colin to keep an eye on her. You have some experience, don't you? It's a lot easier than it looks, Suzaku said before turning to their prisoner. Hey Colin, if I let you loose, will you help me find some food? Colin said nothing as she turned away with a scowl. I believe that is a no, Dreadwing told his young friend, causing Suzaku to shake his head with a sigh. However, Colin looked in minor surprise as she heard some foliage move and saw a deer sticking its head out. Dreadwing had also noticed the animal's presence. Suzaku, there is wildlife here. Suzaku saw the animal. It's a deer. They're not usually island animals, so it's a little weird. The animal ducked its head and turned back into the forest. I can fetch it for you. Dreadwing stood up. No, it's fine. Let it go. We've got plenty of fish in here, Suzaku said as he continued to search for more fish, all the while Colin couldn't help but look in the direction the deer ran off into. The deer had made it quite the distance away from Suzaku, Dreadwing, and Colin as it came to a stop in the middle of the forest to eat some plants off the ground. However, its ears twitched as it heard some branches snapping around it. A large shadow loomed over the smaller animal. By the time it turned its head, it was already too late. With a sudden slash, blood had scattered all across the ground. Meanwhile, Lelouch and Euphemia, now fully clothed, were both in the forest. Optimus was still at the beach as Lelouch used a log to try and dig a pitfall trap with Euphemia holding his cape. If you want, I'm sure Optimus can. Euphemia asked her brother. He's far too big. He'll scare the animals away. Lelouch muttered as he dropped the log, having dug a small pit already. He took the time to catch his breath. Maybe I can help, Euphemia offered. Manual labor isn't fit for royal princes, don't worry. The sweaty Lelouch said in between breaths. My methods, perfect. Well, I suppose I could go and search for something like fruit, Euphemia said as she was about to walk away. Don't go off too far, Euphy, Lelouch said, taking a moment to rest. Right, Euphy smiled as she walked deeper into the forest. As the pink-haired royal searched for some fruit, she still couldn't contain the joy that had filled her heart. After so many years, she was finally back with her dear brother, whom she cried for after his supposed death for weeks. But now he was here, and in the care of someone truly strong and caring. Though it was the first time meeting him, one look in Optimus' eyes and she could tell he was someone she could trust completely, in stark contrast to many of the Decepticons she's met so far. Her thoughts were brought to halt as she found a branch with some fruit hanging from some branches. Oh, these look promising. She reached out to pick some. But when she pulled on the branch, she noticed something odd behind the branches, but she couldn't quite make it out. When she pulled the branches out of the way to get a clear view, she gasped and screamed in horror as she saw the decapitated head of a deer, blood splattered all over the place. Euphemia quickly ran out of the forest and made it back to the beach, right toward Optimus, who turned around to look in surprise and concern at the sight of Euphemia's frightened expression. Is something wrong? The Autobot leader asked as even Lelouch ran out, having heard Euphemia's scream as well. There's something out there. Euphemia stuttered, still not over her shock. A deer. Only its head. Euphemia. Lelouch put his hands on her shoulders to calm her down. It's okay, just breath. He gave a deep breath of his own for emphasis. One look in her brother's eyes was enough to calm her slightly as she took a deep breath to calm herself further. Alright, what did you see? I saw a severed deer head, Euphemia stuttered as Lelouch glanced up to Optimus. There was blood everywhere. Maybe a wild predator, Lelouch assumed. I think it's best you stay with us for the time being. Don't wander off again, alright? Euphemia nodded. Alright. The nemesis. VV's eyes flickered open as a light shined over him. Wakey, wakey. His eyes shot open as he saw the mini-cons rumble in frenzy standing over him. VV had found himself strapped on an interrogation table built for mini-cons in the laboratory of the Decepticon warship. He struggled, but the energy bindings on his wrists wouldn't budge. He tried to use his powers with his code to teleport away, only to feel that his connection was lost. He was out of range for all of the thought elevators. Sleep well, little Victor. Frenzy teased. Have a nice dream. Good, because you just woke up into a nightmare. Rumble laughed. VV glanced upward to see Megatron enter the laboratory with Soundwave and Shockwave by his side. Megatron, what is the meaning of this? How dare you attack me? Megatron chuckled. You know, you really have no right to speak to me in such a tone after your grand deception. He began. Charles had told me that you had died many years ago, and yet now here you are, not only alive, but the same age as you were back then. Even more so, your body was utterly destroyed by my attack, and all injuries have healed, without even the tiniest of scars. Am I correct to assume you possess the same immortal abilities as the one you call CC? VV's eyes widened in shock. How do you? It would seem that the late Prince Clovis had a secret project of his own dedicated to the study of the immortal. Shockwave explained as Soundwave's visor had shown the pictures and data gathered from Code R. Clovis clearly intended to use her abilities as a means to secure the throne for himself. Although, seeing how Clovis was among Charles' least intelligent offspring, at least compared to the likes of Lelouch and Schneizel, it makes me wonder how Charles was unaware of this. Or perhaps, he was always aware, and chose not to act. But that leaves one prudent question: why? Why did he not intervene in his son's treacherous affairs? It seems highly illogical. Could it be because he didn't wish the potential exposure of his own conspiracies regarding the power of Geass? The immortal boy gasped. I don't know what you're talking about, he tried to deny. Oh, I think you do, seeing how you've just recovered from a shot that would have killed an ordinary human. Megatron continued. So, allow me to venture, you and Charles have been plotting behind my back, attempting to use the power of Geass for your personal ends. You knew of CC from the beginning, didn't you? And have done everything you could to hide it from me. No, I don't know what you're. VV tried to protest only to be silenced as Megatron blasted a hole in the wall with his fusion cannon. Do not take me for a fool, Victor Z. Britannia. Megatron yelled with a raged look on his face. This was enough to make VV gulp and remain silent as Megatron continued to speak. I've been growing wise to you and your brother's transgressions for some time now. From what I can gather, those who are immortal can grant the power of Geass to others. CC has no doubt granted it to Zero, also known as Lelouch v Britannia. VV gasped. Yes, I've been aware of his identity from the beginning. It would be wise not to underestimate Soundwave's analytical abilities. And seeing how I remember how close you and Charles were in the past, I can only assume that you've given him a Geass ability as well. But I doubt it was simply him. You must have granted it to a number of individuals, perhaps as your own personal force to do as you see fit. To act in the shadows and carry out whatever schemes you have planned behind my back. VV couldn't believe it. It sounded as if Megatron had already known almost everything. How could you have known all this? The immortal stuttered. Charles and we covered all our tracks, there was no way you could have. CC had given her Geass to an individual before she came into contact with Zero and the Autobots. Shockwave answered. It was this individual that had brought the concept of Geass to our attention. And you seem to have quite a bit in common with that individual, my dear Victor. Megatron continued. You were about as arrogant as he was when he approached me. He believed with his ability he could find a way to persuade me to assist him, and it seems that was your intent as well. Unfortunately for you, I've had experience with those types of individuals long before I came to Earth. I had suspected you were secretly alive, and I would have found you eventually, but it seems you've saved me the trouble. Megatron loomed directly over VV so the immortal boy could look into his soul-piercing red optics. Now Victor, you will tell me everything you and Charles have been up to. A look of defiance fell on the immortal boy's face. There is nothing you can do that will make me betray my brother. I wouldn't be so certain. Megatron turned to his scientist. Shockwave is quite adept at extracting information from his patients. Shockwave knew what his leader was implying and had mixed thoughts about it. Lord Megatron, the cortical psychic patch was designed to be used for Cybertronians. It has never been tested on an organic specimen. It is highly unlikely he will survive the process. Then it's a good thing he is immortal, wouldn't you agree, Victor? Megatron queried the boy with a smirk, causing VV to sweat a little bit before Megatron turned back to Shockwave. Feel free to use whatever methods you wish. Test as many times as you need to, Shockwave, and take as much time as you require. Kill him repeatedly if you have to, we'll at least learn the limits of his immortality. As you wish, Lord Megatron. Shockwave picked up a cord, attaching one end to the back of his head as the other end surged with electricity as the one-eyed Decepticon approached the immortal, who began to experience an emotion he had never felt in a very long time: fear. The Ark. What happened yesterday was beyond perplexing for both the Black Knights and the Autobots. Though they all made it back in one piece, while also recovering both the Gurren Mk2 and the Gekka pre-production, Optimus, Zero, Bumblebee, Rai, and Colin had vanished completely, and they have been unable to find any of them. You still haven't found them? Ogi asked Ratchet as he, Shirley, Tamaki, Toto, Kagaya, along with Bulkhead, RC, Cliffjumper, Wheeljack, and Ironhide were all on the bridge as Ratchet and Fix-It continued to scan the area from the bridge's controls. No. Ratchet shook his head. Optimus and Bumblebee's signals have not popped up since yesterday. What could have happened though? It's not like they all just vanished into thin air, Shirley said, sounding more than a little worried, a feeling that was shared by every human and bot present. Maybe another ground bridge, Toto suggested. Is it possible they were captured by the enemy? Unlikely. Fix-It commented. We would have detected another ground bridge signal had it appeared in that area. Well, they didn't just disappear, RC said in tone indicating she was worried for Colin. They had to be taken somewhere. Maybe they just wound on one of the other islands nearby. Tamaki thought. We've scanned the entire area, there is no sign of any Autobot signals. Ratchet responded. What could have happened to them? Wheeljack wondered. You don't suppose they might have bought it, right? No freaking way, Tamaki exclaimed. No way our top guns could kick the bucket so easily. That's right, Ironhide agreed. If Lelouch or Optimus were killed, Britannia would have already made a statement. The fact they haven't shows that they haven't even found any remains. So, they might still be okay? Shirley asked in a hopeful tone. I have no doubt, Cliffjumper said with confidence. Look who we're talking about here. Colin and Rai are out top pilots, B's the best scout there is, and Lelouch and Optimus need no further explanation. I'm sure they can handle themselves no matter what trouble they find themselves in. But it's not just them that vanished, right? Kagaya asked. That is correct, Fix-It confirmed. Britannia's military channels have indicated Suzaku, Dreadwing, Nonet Enneagram, and even Euphemia have all vanished. Britannia's military personnel, led by Second Prince Schneizel L. Britannia as well as Starscream, are leading the church, Birch, search. Which means we can't just go looking for our comrades blindly. Toto said. Not with so many enemies combing the area. But what happens if the bad guys find our friends? Bulkhead questioned. Or that our pals, Suzaku, Dreadwing, and their pals ended up with their friends. If that's the case, our friends outnumber them. They should be fine, Wheeljack replied. Still, it really gets to me that we can't do anything to find them. RC said. We may not have a choice in the matter, RC. Not with our current circumstances. Ratchet told her. Okay, how about this? Ogie suggested. We wait 24 hours. If we don't hear a response from them, we go looking ourselves. But we use stealth and try to avoid drawing attention. How does that sound? Ironhide, Ratchet, and Toto shared expressions as this seemed like a good idea. Alright, Toto nodded. Yeah, that's a good plan. Ironhide agreed. So, there's nothing else we can do? Shirley asked. Sorry Shirley, but not at the moment. Kagaya told her, causing the brunette to look down. Ratchet then turned around to look at the monitor. Optimus, where are you? The sun had slowly began to set as Lelouch, Euphemia, and Optimus Prime sat together on the beach of the mysterious island. What's wrong, Lelouch? They're quite tasty, Euphemia said as he had gathered much fruit for herself and her half-brother, and while Lelouch was glad to have some food, he felt a tad bad that she was the one who got them food when he wasn't able to gather any. She looked upward to the Autobot that sat with him. I'm sorry I couldn't find anything for you, Optimus. You know, now that I think about it, I'm not even sure what Cybertronians eat. We don't ingest food the way humans do. Optimus explained. Energon is often our means of preservation and sustention. An intrigued look fell on Euphemia's face. Well, I'd be very interested to know how that works. There's really a lot I'd like to know about Cybertronians. Her face fell into something of confliction and dismay. The ones that I've been around lately aren't exactly the type one want to make small talk with. Both Optimus and Lelouch grimaced. Let me ask you something, Euphy, seeing as how you've interacted with some of the Decepticons, were you by any chance in contact with their leader, Megatron? Euphy stopped moving just at the mere mention of that name and hesitated before giving an answer. I've spoken to him only a few times. Seeing how you've been so close with him, how do you feel? Lelouch asked. Well, he certainly is strong. Euphy answered. Incredibly versatile, not to mention a competent strategist. I even think he might even give our brother Schneizel a challenge if they were to play a game of chess. No, I mean how do you feel when you're around him? Lelouch clarified. Truthfully, Euphy asked, in which Lelouch nodded in response. He terrifies me. Both Lelouch and Optimus were not surprised to hear that. Not just how intimidating he is in appearance. Lelouch, you remember how your mother and Schneizel once said how eyes are like the windows to the soul? Well, when I first looked into his eyes, I didn't see a soul. There was just nothing. As if you were looking into the eyes of the devil. Lelouch finished, to which Euphemia gave a nod in response. Euphemia, you have good instincts. Optimus told her. If Megatron ever did have a soul, he has long since abandoned it. Meanwhile, on a separate beach, night had fallen as Dreadwing, Suzaku and the imprisoned Colin had sat down near a campfire as the redhead leaned back with a content sigh, having eaten a great deal of the food that Suzaku had fished for them. Can't eat another bite. Boy am I stuffed. So, is this a glimpse of what you're really like? Suzaku asked. Colin shot him an indifferent look. Yeah, you wanna make something of it. No, I think it's charming to see you so much livelier than you are at school. Suzaku said, causing Colin to look away. What about you? Colin asked him. You act all nice and sociable at school, but when you're with the cons you're probably every bit the warmongered your master is, right? I would appreciate if you did not speak about Lord Megatron in such regard. Dreadwing advised. What? I'm not allowed to express how I feel. Colin questioned. If you want me to shut up, then you can just execute me and get it over with. No, I will not terminate an unarmed prisoner. Dreadwing responded, resulting in Colin scowling as she looked further away. Suzaku gave a sigh before he spoke. Colin, leave the Black Knights and the Autobots. Forget it. Colin yelled immediately. You want me to abandon my friends? Well, that's not happening. You have no idea what they've all done for me. They gave me a chance to take a stand and fight for what's right. Zero even saved my mother's life. What? Suzaku voiced in surprise. Even Dreadwing was caught off guard. He did. You think he's a terrorist, but you couldn't be further from the truth. Colin continued. He gave me hope, they all did. They showed me how I can use my skills to fight monsters like Britannia and the Decepticons. In fact, I've kicked even your ass in my nightmare. Are you that red one? Suzaku asked, taking a guess based on the color of Colin's pilot suit. Damn right. I've even totaled more than a few cons, like your BFF Arachnid. She replied. Arachnid and I are not friends. Suzaku quickly said. I honestly don't want anything to do with her. Yet you and Breakdown teamed up with her during that whole mess over the Polarity Gauntlet. Colin argued. We had orders to retrieve that weapon. Suzaku said. I couldn't let it fall into the hands of the enemy. So, you teamed up with a goddamn serial killer to do it. Colin yelled. At first, I didn't think you were so bad, till I found out how much of a hypocrite you are. Hypocrite, Suzaku exclaimed. Yeah, you heard me. She continued to shout. You keep acting like you have the moral high ground, even though you willing joined the fascist Britannia and became Megatron's personal attack dog. So, what did Megatron do to buy your loyalty? Money. Power. I didn't. Suzaku tried to come up with an argument, but Dreadwing spoke up. Lord Megatron does not bribe his subordinates, and he did nothing to coerce Suzaku. The Seeker spoke in a calm yet assertive tone. It was his choice to join our ranks. Oh, quit acting so high and mighty. I know what you guys really are. Colin yelled at Dreadwing. You're monsters. A den of murderers, butchers, backstabbers, and psychopaths who didn't bat an eye at even destroying their own home. We did not destroy Cybertron. Dreadwing stated, partially losing his composure. We did everything we could to save it. That was the very reason Megatron formed the Decepticons, to wipe away the corruption that had spread throughout our society and restore the Golden Age. I regret what has befallen our planet, but that was not our intent. So what? You're gonna tell me Optimus did it? Colin continued to argue. That he's some kind of murderer. Well, I'm gonna tell you right now that he isn't. Optimus Prime is one of the most honorable and courageous people I've ever met in my entire life. He's been nothing short of a father to me. That took Suzaku by surprise. He's a father to you? He questioned in a tone that sounded as if Colin had suddenly grown a second head. Damn right he is. Colin continued. Many of the Black Knights and the Autobots feel like family to me. I will never betray them. I lost my brother at the hands of Britannia. I'll be damned if I let them or the Decepticons take any more from me. You've lost your brother. Dreadwing voiced in honest surprise. Colin scoffed. Go ahead and laugh at me. Go ahead and call my cause weak and trivial. Tell me that my brother deserved to die just because he was helping the weak. Mock his memory. Arachnid and Starscream certainly would. I don't care what you people think. Dreadwing's expression became sympathetic as he looked at Colin. I will never mock someone who has lost their sibling, because I have lost a brother as well. Colin honestly did not expect to hear that. What? Suzaku looked toward Dreadwing in sympathy as he spoke. My twin Skyquake perished during the war for Cybertron. Dreadwing explained. We joined the cause because we both believed in what Lord Megatron strived for. You use your brother's death as motivation to help drive you for your cause, just as I do. You wish to avenge him and preserve his memory, as I do as well. Even though we may be on opposite sides, Colin Kazuki, I believe I understand your reasons to fight, and you have my honest sympathies. Colin simply looked away. Lucky me. She muttered sarcastically before glancing at Suzaku. Something you wanna say? Colin, I'm sorry about your brother, really I am. He tried to speak, but Colin didn't want to hear it. Oh please, like you care about family. Sympathies for the loss of a family member don't mean much when they're from the person who killed his own father. Suzaku gasped as his pupils shook, and Dreadwing was left completely stunned as he gasped at the shocked Suzaku. At the same time, on a separate beach, Ryan the imprisoned Nonette had finished off their food as they sat with Bumblebee on the sandy ground. Ryan tried to suppress a small burp. Excuse me. However, both he and Bumblebee were caught off guard by Nonette, who gave an even louder burp. Did you just burp? Ryan questioned. What? A knight of the round isn't allowed to do that. She asked with a half smirk. Well, you guys are like pseudo-royalty, trying so hard to look nice. Rai commented as his face formed into a frown. While hiding just how rotten you guys really are. Nonette's smile faded. You really hate Britannia. Can't say I blame you given what happened. It's kinda hard not to hate Britannia considering it's mostly filled narcissistic warmongers. Rai began. Not to mention it's become even worse since the cons joined up with you. Okay, that much I can agree with. Nonette said. From what I've seen, the Decepticons aren't ones that I would consider trustworthy, with the exception of Dreadwing. Rai scoffed. If you know they're so bad, why are you still working with them? Not my choice, not my call. Nonette quickly said. The Emperor's orders. Of course. Rai threw his arms out in exasperation. Who else but a psychopath would work with another psycho? I swear if I ever see that bastard, I'm gonna kill him myself if Zero doesn't get the chance to. Nonette looked toward Rai in minor surprise. You really don't remember, do you? That got Ray's attention as well as Bumblebee's. What was it you called me again? The young Black Knight asked. Kaiserin. Bumblebee's radio played Nonette's recorded voice. What the heck does that even mean, anyway? It's your name, Nonette said. My name is Rai. I don't wanna sound rude, but that was the name you gave yourself. Remember, you don't know your birth name. Bumblebee pointed out. Maybe, but Kaiserin doesn't ring any bells. Rai then looked at Nonette. Well, Ms. Knight of Nine, since you apparently know so much about me, tell me who I am. I'm just dying to know. He voiced in obvious sarcasm. Nonette looked down with a sorrowful expression, knowing he'd probably regret learning this. Your real name is, Kaiserin von Britannia. Rai almost fell back as his eyes widened to the point that they were almost circular, and even Bumblebee's optics shook in shock. Say what? Bumblebee bleeped. Von Britannia. Rai had a pretty good idea what that part of his so-called name meant, but he had hoped beyond hope that it wasn't true. Your father's name is, Charles Z. Britannia. Nonette confirmed. It was nighttime as Lelouch had set his cape down on the ground for Euphemia to lay on as he sat on a rock with Optimus sitting on the ground close to him. All three happened to gaze up at the starry night that laid above them. The stars haven't changed, have they? Euphemia asked, mostly to her brother. They were the same back then. She and Lelouch both remembered how they, Nunnally, and even Marianne used to lay on the ground and watch the stars the same way. Were the stars like this? On Cybertron, I mean. Optimus gazed up reminiscently before answering. Perhaps not the exact same, but yes, there were nights much like this, when those I considered friends and myself would gaze up at them with hope. He did this many times before with the likes of Alpha Trion, Ratchet, Ironhide, and even Alita before the war, and even a few times during the war with Bumblebee and his fellow soldiers. He even stood alongside Megatron at a time before they were sworn enemies. What exactly happened? Euphemia asked. I've heard some bits and pieces from Dreadwing and even what Suzaku had told me from Megatron's words. But, I want to hear yours, Optimus. Why was there a war? How did Cybertron? If it's not too much trouble, of course, It's quite alright, Optimus assured. If you really wish to know, I will tell you. She gave Optimus her undivided attention as even Lelouch listened. He heard the gist of what had happened and even knew a bit of Optimus' history with Megatron, but no, it would seem he would learn some of the details. Before the war broke out, Cybertron was divided by a caste system that was not too dissimilar from the one Britannia has implemented on this world. Optimus began. There were those among the privileged high class, and those among the lower class, often designated as workers such as miners, construction, and other similar designations. Soon, corruption began to spread among the masses as a result of this inequality. Those in the higher class viewed themselves as superior to those with lower class. Definitely sounds familiar, Lelouch thought as he continued to listen. Back then, I went under a different name. I was called Orion Pax. Optimus continued. I served as an archivist in the halls of Yakin, the capital of Cybertron. As I learned more about the past Golden Age, I became more concerned with the growing corruption and I sought to find a solution. I would soon be joined in this endeavor by a gladiator who had named himself after one of the original primes, Megatronus. That really caught Lelouch and Euphemia's attention as that name sounded so much like another one they knew all too well. It didn't take a genius to figure out who this, Megatronus, was. Megatron had vowed to challenge the current leadership of Cybertron, demanding all Cybertronians be treated as equals. His words and actions rapidly gathered a loyal following, and I was among them. Megatron and I worked together for many years, hoping to bring about a new golden age where we would all live in peace, at least that was my hope. As Megatron left the gladiatorial arena for the political, he saw fit to shorten his name. It wasn't long before Megatron approached the High Council, those who had the power to select the Prime, the leader of our planet, and proposed his vision for a just society. However, it is here that I believe Megatron would begin to show his true intentions. He proclaimed to overthrow the current leader, Sentinel Zeta Prime, with brute force and demanded that he be named the next leader. Not requested, demanded it. Sounds like those were his true intentions. Lelouch commented. He never really wanted peace, did he? He just wanted power. Megatron believed that power was the only way to obtain peace. Optimus continued. But I did not. I proposed to the High Council a more peaceful solution, a way to change our current system without violence. As Euphemia and Lelouch continued to listen, the latter couldn't help but recall some of Suzaku's words about changing Britannia, and a pit formed in his stomach a bit. The High Council agreed my proposal, and even opted to name me the next leader. However, Megatron was not in agreement. With his ambitions thwarted, he spitefully severed all ties with me and the Council, and would soon come to wage war through his growing army of followers which he named Decepticons. So, he actually started the war? Euphy asked in shock. Yes, Optimus confirmed. But, if you were friends, didn't you try to stop him? Try to convince him to change his mind? Euphemia asked. I did, many times did I ask or even beg Megatron to stop the fighting. Optimus replied. But he wouldn't listen, and even requested that I would join his cause. I refused and he declared me his enemy, as if those years we spent together as brothers in arms had meant nothing to him. Lelouch looked to Optimus in sympathy, as did Euphemia. I'm so sorry. The war had continued for many years, the conflict between Autobots and Decepticons remaining a bitter stalemate. Optimus continued. That is until Megatron had gained the power to control Dark Energon. That took both half-siblings by surprise. Dark Energon? Lelouch asked. You never mentioned that before. I never felt there was a need. Optimus answered. Energon is Sakuradite, Euphemia recalled. It serves as fuel, but, Dark Energon. What exactly is that? She didn't quite seem to understand. In order for either of you to understand this, I feel you must understand how our species came about. Optimus began, getting their attention. Before the beginning, at a time when the universe was still in its infancy, there were two beings, Primus and Unicron. One the incarnation of good, order, light, and creation. The other, of evil, chaos, darkness, and destruction. Due to their opposite natures, these deity-like beings battled, the balance of power shifting between them more times than could be counted. Only by creating the 13, the original primes who preceded me, was Primus finally able to defeat Unicron and cast him out. Primus became one with the core of our planet, creating life through the well of all sparks, his life essence becoming the substance that would be known as Energon. While Unicron himself was never heard from again, his spilled blood had fallen upon the surface of our planet, and just as Energon, the essence of Primus, brings life, the blood of Unicron, also known as Dark Energon, brings destruction and death. So, would I be correct to assume that Primus and Unicron would be the equivalent of God and the devil? Lelouch asked. That is one way of looking at it, yes. Optimus nodded before continuing. However, Megatron was somehow able to control Dark Energon, even though all thought such a thing would be impossible. With this powerful and destructive substance under his control, Megatron infused Dark Energon into our planet's core, believing he would control the will of Cybertron itself by doing so. But all he did was seal our planet's fate. Euphemia gave a gasp as she covered her mouth in shock, while Lelouch simply scowled. I journeyed to the core, alongside my fellow Autobots, Ironhide and Warpath, hoping to reverse the effects. Optimus continued, only to find it was too late. However, I would soon find myself before the very spark of Primus himself. He told me that Cybertron could still survive, but the core would shut down for millions of years, during which Cybertron would be left cold and barren. However, before Primus would enter his slumber, he would pass on to me a portion of his spark, the matrix of leadership. Optimus, chest plate open to show the matrix itself, it's bright and brilliant, almost holy, light shone down on both Lelouch and Euphemia as they looked in awe. So long as the matrix survives, so too will our home. Optimus said as he closed his chest plate. I've carried it with me ever since, with the hope that Cybertron could be restored to its former glory. Both Lelouch and Euphemia looked to Optimus in absolute awe, any respect they had for him had increased exponentially. Yet, at the same time, a great deal of sorrow, or rage in Lelouch's case, had also filled their beings as they understood completely what kind of being Megatron truly was. Optimus, I am so sorry, Euphemia was almost brought to tears. I can't believe someone, like that, could actually exist. Megatron is pure evil, Euphy. Lelouch told his half-sister. I've known that before I've heard this story. But now, if he didn't even shed a tear for the destruction of his own home, I shudder to think what he would do to ours. Yes, I also fear that if Megatron is not stopped, Earth may very well suffer the same fate as Cybertron. Optimus said in a grim tone. Meanwhile, Suzaku was left in a state of shock, as was Dreadwing as he gazed down at Suzaku in surprise while Colin continued to glare. How on earth do you know that? The young honorary Britannian stuttered. Toto told me everything, Colin said with a scoff. And even then, I can't believe that he actually still wants to help you. Suzaku, Dreadwing, for one of the few moments in his life, had no idea what to say. Did you really kill your own father? I didn't have a choice, Suzaku tried. He called for do-or-die resistance. Millions of people would have died, Japan would have. You didn't have a choice. Colin exclaimed in anger. That's bullshit and you know it. You could have stabbed him in the leg or something. You didn't have to kill him. And now you're only using his death as an excuse. Just a stepping stone to get what you want. My father made his own choice. Suzaku tried to argue. Are you saying he was right in sending millions of people to die? That's not the point, Colin stated. Look, personally I wouldn't have agreed to something like that, but that's not what we're talking about here. You killed your own father and you're blaming him for that, and it's not the only time. You choose to become a Britannian soldier. You choose to join the Decepticons. Quit acting like you didn't have a choice, because you did. I joined the Britannian military because I want to change the system. Suzaku argued. It's also the reason I joined the Decepticons, because Megatron said. And you actually believe him? Colin interrupted. After he let that spider bitch Arachnid back into his ranks after what she did. Suzaku tried to muster a glare of his own. Well, perhaps we wouldn't have to go to such methods if your side continues to fight. It's always everybody else's fault and never yours, right Suzaku? Colin exclaimed. Ironhide was right about you. You cannot take responsibility for all the crap that you do in your life. Responsibility? Suzaku shouted in shock and anger. You're lecturing me about responsibility. Britannia is an empire that controls 1/3 of the entire planet. Trying to get everybody to fight a force as powerful as that is only going to put innocent people in danger. That's always something we tried to avoid. Colin stated. We never target civilians, even Britannians. Which is more than I can say for the likes of Britannia and the Khans. Clovis tried to massacre the entire Shinjuku ghetto. Cornelia tried the same thing in Saitama. Starscream used the hotel jacking to draw us out so he could blow up the entire damn thing. And don't even get me started on what Arachnid did in the ghettos. She spoke to both Suzaku and Dreadwing. Even if you two say you guys have a moral code, it doesn't really mean much if you let your leaders continue to slaughter countless people to get what they want. Can you honestly look me in the eyes and say they were right to try and kill all those people? No, that is not what we are saying. Dreadwing stated. I agree that there are those, even on our own side, that have less than reputable approaches in certain situations. Keep preaching you damn con. Colin stated. I don't wanna hear your excuses, or yours Suzaku. She spoke to him directly. We're fighting to make this world a better place. Something that son of a bitch of an emperor does not want to happen. The world is wrong. Zero, Optimus, all the Black Knights and the Autobots, including me, are trying to change it. If you want to change it so badly, you can stop fighting and propose a peaceful solution to us. Suzaku argued. But all you're doing is fighting, which leaves me no choice but to take a stand against you. Colin scoffed. Are you even listening to yourself? What am I, some kind of comic book villain controlling your mind? You do have a choice, Suzaku. You've always had a choice. All the bad stuff you've done. Killing your dad, attacking us, that was all you. And by trying to put the blame on us, you're just making yourself look like a pussy. Suzaku was left completely floored, so much so that he couldn't come up with a proper argument. Dreadwing had a serious expression as there was a part of him that agreed with what Colin said. A soldier must be willing to accept responsibility for the mistakes they've made. Seeing how he wasn't giving a response, Colin gave one final remark. There is nothing you can say to me that will make me change my mind, Suzaku. I'm a Black Knight, and a friend and ally to the Autobots. That will never change. I know what I'm fighting for. Do you? Rai could not believe the words that Nonette just spoke to him. Even Bumblebee was left in a state of shock. No, that's not true, Rai stuttered. I can't be, you're lying, you have to be lying. I'm not, I'm sorry, but it is the truth. Nonette confirmed as she had a somber look on her face. That can't be, Rai said as he fell to his knees and held his head. That monster is my father. How? Why? Hold on a minute. Bumblebee spoke up. There aren't any records of a Kaiserin von Britannia. We did research on the whole royal family, but the name Kaiserin doesn't pop up. Ray's shocked look into a glare. You know what? You're right, B. What did he say? Nonette asked. If you're telling the truth, then I should be a prince. Someone who's world famous, Rai stated as he narrowed his eyes at Nonette. How come nobody has ever heard of Prince Kaiserin? Because the Emperor has never officially announced your existence, or that of your sister. Nonette said. Rai did not expect to hear that last word. Whoa, hold on. I have a sister. He voiced in shock as he looked at the equally surprised Bumblebee. Had a sister. She died. Nonette looked away with a pained look in her eyes. And, I thought you died too, but, that's what I don't get. Not that you're alive, but you look the same as you did 7 years ago. 7 years? Rai questioned. You were reported dead 7 years ago, but you look exactly the same. Still as young as you were back then. I don't get it, Nonette stated as she herself seemed to have trouble trying to process all this. Rai had heard enough of all this. There's only one way for me to know if you're telling the truth. Bumblebee looked to his friend in surprise, knowing what he meant. You're going to use your Geass. I have to know, Rai quickly said as he looked at Nonette, the Geass emblem flashing in both his eyes. Tell me who I am. The minute his voice reached her ears, a red ring formed in both of Nonette's eyes as she gave her answer. Your name is Kaiserin von Britannia. In my father's name, Charles Z. Britannia, she answered robotically. A look of anger filled Ray's face, knowing she was speaking the truth, as it was impossible to lie under the effects of a Geass. With an angry yell, Rai slammed both his fists onto the sand, causing Bumblebee to look in sympathy. Taking a moment to calm down, however, Rai looked up at Nonette again, his Geass still active as he asked another question. Who's my mother? Sakura Kururugi, she answered. Neither Rai nor Bumblebee could have expected that. Did she just say Kururugi? B bleeped in surprise. As in, she's related to Suzaku. Rai stuttered to ask with his Geass. Yes, Suzaku's paternal aunt. The elder sister to Genbu Kururugi. Nonette revealed. To say Rai and Bumblebee were surprised was an understatement. Not only was he half Japanese and half Britannian, but he was also the half-brother to Lelouch and Nunnally, and Suzaku's cousin. However, something did not quite make sense. Why would the Emperor, a man who encourages racism and war, marry a Japanese woman? They did not marry. Charles and Sakura had an affair that was kept secret from both their families. Nonette revealed. Why though? Why have an affair with her in the first place? Rai asked. I do not know. Nonette answered. Tell me about my sister. Rai said, keeping his Geass active. Her name was Irina von Britannia, your younger sister. She replied. How do you know about us? Rai asked further. Because I was assigned as your knight. Nonette answered robotically, much to Rai and B's surprise as she continued. I was among the select few that knew of you and your family's existence. I became your knight to protect you and your family. Where did we live? Rai asked. In the area that was known as the Philippines, south of Japan. Nonette answered. What happened to us? Rai continued to ask. When Japan was invaded, the Britannian forces also invaded the Philippine Islands at the same time. No net began. They were reported to have fought to the last man. Casualties were extreme. Among those counted deceased included you, your sister, and your mother. Rai narrowed his eyes. Oh, well, if you were my knight, where were you when all that happened? I was called away on another mission by the Emperor to quell a dispute on the homeland. No net answered. By the time the dispute was settled, I had learned of your deaths. How'd you take it? Rai asked. I barged into the throne room and demanded the Emperor answer for his actions. No net answered. In response, I was demoted. Then how'd you become a knight of the round, one of his elite? Rai asked in confusion, his Geass still active. And why did you do it if you were angry him? I became a knight of the round by rising through the military. No net answered. And I choose to become one because I sought to expose the Emperor's darker nature to the rest of Britannia in an effort that the Empire would see him removed. By force if necessary. If Rai and B weren't surprised before, they certainly were now. You would start a Britannian civil war. I would avoid a war if necessary, but if there was no other alternative, then yes. No net confirmed. Why? Rai asked, still in shock. To avenge you, and your sister, and mother. No net answered. I was your knight, I swore to protect you, and I failed you. It is my hope that you can forgive me, but I understand if you can't. Rai couldn't believe it, and neither could Bumblebee. A knight of the round was ready to strike against her own emperor without hesitation. Maybe she could be a potential ally. But it wouldn't be under the effects of a Geass. If he did that, he'd be no different from his so-called father or the Decepticons. With a sigh, Rai deactivated his Geass, freeing No net of the influence as the red ring vanished from her eyes. She looked in confusion over what had just happened as Rai stood up, his hair covering his face as he walked away. Are you alright? She asked him. No, I just need to think, he muttered as he walked behind the sitting Bumblebee, sat down and lied against his back, placing a hand over his face. There was so much going through his head just now. He finally learned who he was and where he came from, but a part of him wished he hadn't. Yet there were still so many questions in his head, like how apparently, he hasn't aged in 7 years. He knew he didn't have the same kind of code abilities that VV or CC have. And the worst part, he still had no memories of any of this. He didn't know what to think. Bumblebee looked backwards to cast a sympathetic glance toward Rai, honestly having no idea what to say to comfort or help him, no matter how much he wanted to. At the same time, however, he had come to develop a sense of respect for No net. She appeared truly loyal to Rai, or Kaiserin anyway, evenly confessing she'd start a Britannian civil war just to avenge him. Maybe she could be an ally against both Britannia and the Decepticons. However, the yellow Autobot glanced upward in minor surprise as he saw lights shining from another area on the island up toward the clouds. The Avalon had stationed itself near the center of the very same island our heroes and other individuals were stuck on. Schneizel was at the control center of his personal aircraft carrier with both General Bartley and Lloyd by his side. We couldn't find Major Kururugi or Lady Enneagram washed ashore on the other island, so it's obvious we should look here. Schneizel said. But what about Dreadwing? Lloyd asked. Considering he's a flyer, wouldn't it make sense he'd already transported them away? If that were the case, it's a wonder why they haven't attempted to make contact. Schneizel replied. We'll send a search party out in the morning. Bartley said. Speaking of contact, I don't think I've even able to establish contact with anyone since we came to this little island. Lloyd said as he took out his personal cell phone. I can't even call Cecile without receiving static on the other end. Yes, we are even unable to make short-ranged contact with our nightmare pilots. Schneizel said as he and his two companions looked through the Avalon's screen to see a cave that was outside, right in front of the craft. I do believe that this may be the cause. We uncovered it when the Shinjuku incident occurred. Bartley answered, though we were able to contact outside forces when we discovered it. This blocked contact situation is something entirely new. Interesting. Schneizel mused. At the same time, Starscream was right outside the Avalon, along with Thundercracker, Skywarp, Knockout, Breakdown, and several other Viacons and even Britannian Sutherlands as they looked toward the cave. This seems to be the source of the jamming signal. Knockout said as he and Thundercracker scanned the exterior of the cave with their own devices. It's radiating the same energy that was detected on Shikini when Dreadwing and everyone else vanished. Some form of teleportation, maybe. Thundercracker wondered as he looked at his own device. Not unlike ground bridges, yet quite different. I've never seen an energy signature quite like this before. Starscream glanced at the cave as he rubbed his fingers down his chin. It would appear that there is more to this planet than I originally thought. The Nemesis. It took longer than one had expected, but Shockwave was able to use the cortical physic patch to extract all information from VV's mind as he remained strapped to the mini-con table in the laboratory. It was a rather grueling process as VV died exactly 78 times, only to be revived immediately thanks to his own code powers, and to undergo the same process again, dying each time, rather painfully. Sometimes, his body exploded, sometimes it burst into flames, sometimes his internal organs melted, other times his nervous system was fried. But no matter what, he healed up almost instantly, allowing Megatron and Soundwave to observe the effects of his immortality, and they seemed quite impressed. With the power, not with VV himself. But it was finally done. Shockwave had perfected the cortical psychic patch's ability to work on humans as he was able to extract every little piece of information VV's mind held, and the data was presented to Megatron. The Lord of the Decepticons had learned everything that Charles and VV were up to. He learned more about Geass as well, including all the thought elevators, more information regarding CC, the contracts VV has made with others including Charles, even learning Charles's ability to alter memories as he's even done to his own family before. But what really got Megatron's attention was Charles and VV's end goal and how they had hoped to achieve it. Ragnarok. Megatron said with an evil chuckle. I never knew Charles was so ambitious, to come up with such a grand goal, and the plan on how to achieve it, how deceptive. It's a shame his dear brother has decided to act out against his wishes. Megatron cast a glance to VV, who looked up with fear-shaken eyes at the Decepticon leader. Perhaps I may have underestimated you and your brother, Victor. But not as drastically as you've underestimated me. You thought by teleporting Optimus, Lelouch, Suzaku, Dreadwing, and their allies to Kaname Island via the thought elevators, you would not only gain leverage over me, but even trigger a trap that would enable Lelouch and Kaiserin to lose control of their Geass abilities, which you would turn to your advantage. Though I suppose that's more of a matter of underestimating Optimus and the influence he has on his allies. Regardless, you believed your immortality made you invincible, that you were the pinnacle of the power of Geass. But you have no idea what true power is. I have seen true power. And it makes even the Geass look weak and insignificant by comparison. At the end, you are as you appear to be, just a spiteful child. Megatron then turned to his most faithful scientist. Shockwave, monitor VV and see to it he is confined to the Nemesis, away from his thought elevators so he is unable to teleport himself away. I will make a final decision on what to do with him soon. As you wish, Lord Megatron. The Cyclops Decepticon bowed his head. No. VV thought as dread spread throughout his body. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Charles, I didn't mean for him to find out. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. He tried to tell himself as he was unable to hide the fear he was now experiencing. The next morning, Dreadwing and Suzaku escorted the bound Colin in the direction they thought was a search party. However, what they didn't seem to notice was Colin losing her wrists from the bounds that kept her hands bound. What makes you guys so sure it's a Britannian search party? Colin questioned them. What will you do if it's my people? A smirk fell on her face. You don't seem to have much of a winning streak against them, do you, Suzaku? Suzaku's eyes twitched slightly. If that's the case, we'll figure a way to deal with them. You should be more worried for yourself, Colin Kazuki. Dreadwing told her. If it's our forces, you may very well be a prisoner of war. Not for long. Colin hid her smirk as she was almost free from her bonds. At the same time, Bumblebee and Rai walked toward the same location along with Nonette as her hands were still tied behind her back, though she made no attempt to escape. Are you sure you saw a light? Nonette asked. Yeah, I'm positive. Bumblebee bleeped. He said, yes. Rai translated. Also, simultaneously, Optimus led both Lelouch and Euphemia in the same direction from a separate location. We should be nearing its location soon. Stay close to me. Optimus told both of them. If it's our forces we shouldn't have much to worry about. What if it's Britannia? Lelouch asked. Then maybe I can do something. Euphemia suggested. I may be the sub-viceroy, but I am still a princess. The two revolutionary leaders shared a concerning look. It wasn't that Optimus or Lelouch doubted Euphemia, but more so they were worried that the Britannians or Decepticons would attack anyway and dismiss Euphemia as a casualty of war. Schneizel, Starscream, Thundercracker, Skywarp, Lloyd, Knockout, Breakdown, and General Bartley were now inside the cave they discovered, facing what appeared to be ancient hieroglyphics on a massive stone door that was even twice as tall as the likes of Megatron. However, there was also an empty nightmare that stood out among all others seen thus far. It was by far the biggest, black with a gold secondary color, with two shoulder-mounted cannon-like devices. You say this is called a thought elevator? Starscream mused. That's what we believe, yes. Schneizel confirmed. Doesn't seem like much of an elevator to me. Skywarp commented. There's nothing here to move it. I doubt it's the same type of elevator. Knockout said. But it does appear to be the source of this usual energy. Thundercracker noted as he scanned the hieroglyphics. Well then, let's crack it open and see what's inside. Breakdown readied his hammer. As much as I appreciate your straightforward thinking, Breakdown, I believe it would be best to find out what exactly it is first before we attempt to destroy it. Schneizel advised. He's got you there, big guy. Lloyd said causally. But I'm afraid archaeology isn't my strong suit, especially with all this paranormal stuff. Why you, show some respect. Bartley growled. As I was saying, this is way outside of my field. Lloyd continued. I wish you could have asked Cecile about this instead. But it is with my hope that the Gawain's druid system will be able to analyze it. Schneizel said, referring to the large black nightmare. And that is why we called you in, Lloyd. Aha. Lloyd seemed more than a bit excitedly. Starscream gave an annoyed groan. Must you always be so annoying, Asplund? He then looked toward the Britannian prince below him. And you say there are more of these things? Yes, 8 total, including this one. Schneizel confirmed. My father seems infatuated with this as well, isn't that right, Bartley? Oh, so the Emperor knows about this? Knockout asked. Yes. Bartley confirmed. Excluding this one, the remaining 7 sites are directly under Imperial control. Coincidence? Skywarp asked. Maybe not. Thundercracker theorized. If the Emperor's interested in these, then maybe that's the reason Britannia is invading other countries. To get these elevator things? Breakdown asked. Why not just call him up and ask him? My father isn't one to give a straight answer. Schneizel replied. And besides, I'd rather not have him learn that I've taken an interest in these thought elevators, not without finding out exactly what they are capable of and how they can be used. Starscream was able to get the underlying message in Schneizel's words as he turned to the prince with an intrigued look. Ah, intending to go behind your father's back, are you? The Schneizel only responded with a half-smile and a raised eyebrow, which was all the confirmation Starscream needed. I am no stranger to ambition. Optimus, Lelouch and Euphemia were about to make it into a clearing when the Autobot leader stopped. We should be careful going from this point. Optimus advised. So, does that mean our time together is over? Euphy asked in a sad tone. Maybe for now, Lelouch told his sister with a small smile. But I'm sure we'll see each other again. In fact, I've been saving this just in case I were to run into you again. Lelouch reached into his pocket and pulled out a small phone-like device and handed it to her. This is a special communicator I made so we can talk in private without Britannia or the Decepticons listening in. But keep in mind, Euphy, this is only for emergencies. We can't use it for small talk, do you understand? Despite that, Euphy couldn't help but smile as she held the device close to her person. Yes, I understand. She turned to the Autobot leader and bowed to him. And Optimus, thank you again for looking out for Lelouch. I am so glad I got to know you. Optimus smiled as well. And I am glad to have met you as well, Princess Euphemia. Euphy then had a serious look on her face. And this why I promise that I'm going to do everything in my power to help you in your struggle against the Decepticons. Now that I know what they are, I refuse to let what happened to Cybertron happen to Earth. Is that why you made Suzaku your knight? Lelouch asked her. To get him away from them. That is one of the reasons, yes. Euphy confirmed. He's a good person, and I don't want a monster like Megatron to try and turn him into something he's not. You said that is one of the reasons. Optimus noted. Might I ask what the other is? Euphemia stuttered for a moment. Well, you see, Lelouch however was able to see right through her as he smirked. You like him, don't you? This caused Euphemia's face to blush, which was all the confirmation Lelouch needed as he chuckled. Oh Euphemia, all these years and you're still too easy to read. Euphemia chuckled with her brother as Optimus had a heart-warming smile at their interactions. However, such a happy moment was brought to a halt as they all heard rustling in the woods across the clearing. Lelouch was quick to place his mask and cape back on as they all hid to see who it was that had approached on the other end of the clearing. Colin, Lelouch thought in surprise, with Suzaku and Dreadwing. Euphemia was the first to rush out. Suzaku. This got the attention of Suzaku, Colin, and Dreadwing. Princess Euphemia. Suzaku did not expect to see her here. However, once Optimus and Zero stepped out, Dreadwing was the first to draw his massive cannon. Prime. Zero. The Decepticon Seeker was ready to fight as Optimus primed his Energon blaster. Dreadwing, it's all right, stand down. Euphemia walked forward, though her command was a shock to both himself and Suzaku. They saved my life and have been taking care of me since I woke up here. They're not our enemies. They saved you. Suzaku stuttered. Suzaku Kururugi, Dreadwing, I don't know how you two have ended up here, but I would appreciate it if you were to return our subordinate now. Zero requested, referring to Colin. I don't think so. Suzaku stated as he kept a firm grip on her arm, however he was taken by surprise by the sound of primed Energon blasters as he and Dreadwing looked to the side to see a certain scout aiming his weapons at the pair. Better do what he says. Bumblebee advised. Bumblebee. Optimus noticed his friend's presence as well, as both he, Lelouch and even Euphemia were shocked by who was with him. Right, Zero muttered in surprise. No net, Euphemia exclaimed. The Knight of Nine did not expect to run in this kind of meeting. Euphemia, Suzaku. Lady Enneagram and, Suzaku's pupils shrunk at the sight of the young man next to her. Right. The amnesiac Black Knight sighed as he addressed his friend. Hey Suzaku. You're a Black Knight too. Suzaku couldn't believe it as he looked in between Rai and Colin with a shocked look on his face before glaring at Zero. What did you do to them to make them join you? Before Zero could give a response, Euphemia walked forward. That's enough Suzaku. Let that woman go, and Dreadwing stand down. Princess Euphemia. Dreadwing was about to protest, but Euphemia remained firm. That is an order. Euphemia stated with finality. Stand down, now. Though surprised at first, both reluctantly did as they were ordered. Yes, Your Highness. Suzaku said as Dreadwing put his cannon away. Suzaku was about to release Colin's bonds, but she had already freed herself and wrenched her unbound hands away as she glared at him before walking across the clearing to join her friends as Optimus lowered his arms. Bumblebee did so as well as he and Rai walked to join up with Optimus and Zero, while allowing Nonet to join Suzaku and Dreadwing, prompting the honorary Britannian to untie his comrade. So, you guys are stuck here too, huh? Bumblebee noted. Yes, it would appear so. Zero confirmed. Colin, Rai, are you two unharmed? Optimus asked his two soldiers. Yeah, I'm fine. Colin confirmed. Same, physically anyway. Rai said in an unsure tone that all his friends noticed as B gave another sympathetic look. Dreadwing, can I assume you're unable to transform for some reason? Zero asked, getting the attention of the Decepticon and two Britannian knights. Otherwise you would have already taken my subordinate and flown away. It's none of your concern, Zero. Dreadwing glared. Dreadwing, Suzaku, Lady Enneagram, is there really a need for us to do battle when we are all in the same predicament? Optimus asked. He does have a point. Nonet pointed out. We're all kinda stuck here. But there's still that search party nearby. Suzaku also said, keeping his glare fixed on the supposed enemies. When we find them and if they're Britannians. Suzaku, there's no need for any of this. Euphemia walked toward her group. You don't have to fight the Autobots or the Black Knights anymore. They're not the real enemy. What are you talking about? Suzaku asked his princess. Megatron has been lying to us. To all of us. Even you, Dreadwing. Euphemia told them, much to each of their surprise. Everything we know is wrong. Please just listen to what Zero and Optimus have to say. Princess Euphemia. Suzaku had no idea how to respond to this. Suzaku, maybe we should listen to them. Nonet seemed to agree. I disagree, Dreadwing stated as he glared at the Autobots and their human allies. I see no reason to converse with any of you. Why am I not surprised? Colin rolled her eyes in an annoyed fashion. Dreadwing, there is more to Skyquake's death than you know. Optimus tried to speak to him rationally. I was there, when he died. Please just listen. However, before anyone could speak any further, Rai happened to glance toward a cliffside on the right side of the area, and his face went pale upon seeing something that stood on top of it. How about we talk things out after we figure out what the hell that thing is? He practically screamed as he pointed at what he saw. All human and Cybertronian eyes fell toward what Rai was seeing, and it was something that made them all gasp in shock or horror in the case of the Autobots, even Dreadwing. It was a massive hulking creature that appeared made entirely out of metal with brown metallic skin, massive claws and talons, insect-like arms on its chest, a metallic head with a red V-shaped visor for an eye and 4 mandibles near its mouth. It looked even bigger than the likes of Optimus. The creature gave a roar as it leapt onto the ground, causing a tremor that shook up the entire area. It set its sights on Optimus and Bumblebee, and once it saw the Autobot insignias on their bodies, it gave another roar as it charged at the pair, forcing them, Zero, Colin, and Rai to scatter as Bumblebee and Optimus opened fire with their respective blasters. What is that thing? Colin exclaimed as she, Rai, and Zero attempted to hide as they saw the large creature grab Bumblebee and chuck him at Optimus, causing them both to crash deep into the forest. Before the monster could make a finishing move attempt, a blast had shot past its head as it turned around to face Dreadwing that had his cannon primed at it. Stand down, scavenger, Dreadwing exclaimed as he stood protectively in front of Suzaku, Euphemia, and Nonet, who continued to hide behind the trees, but they were surprised to hear Dreadwing addressing this monster in such a way. I am Lieutenant Dreadwing, under direct command of Lord Megatron. I order you to stand down. In direct response, the monster roared before it charged at Dreadwing, who opened fire again, but the giant beast was able to dodge the blast, grab the cannon and throw it away before grabbing Dreadwing by the shoulders and pinned him to the ground. It raised its claw to finish him, only for Bumblebee to leap on top of its head and pound on it, forcing it off of Dreadwing as it tried to shake the Autobot off. Bumblebee primed his blaster and aimed directly into its mouth. Eat this. He fired into the monster's mouth, causing it to roar in pain as it was able to shake Bumblebee off, but this left it vulnerable for Optimus to rush in with his blade and decapitate it with a single strike. The headless monstrosity fell down onto the ground. Optimus first helped Bumblebee to his feet before he walked over to Dreadwing and offered him a hand. Though hesitant at first, Dreadwing accepted the gesture as the Autobot leader helped him to stand. Zero, Colin, and Rai walked out in the clearing from one end as Suzaku, Nonet and Euphemia did the same, the princess shaking like a leaf as she saw the lifeless body of the metallic monster. What, in God's name, was that? An insecticon. Optimus answered gravely. A what? Colin, Rai, Suzaku, and Nonet all exclaimed at the same time in shock. A subterranean Cybertronian lifeform. Optimus explained. After our planet's core went dark late in the war, many of these creatures moved to the surface to find new sources of energon to sustain themselves. But, if it's Cybertronian, what's it doing on Earth? Rai asked as Zero went to inspect the body closely. However, he spotted a certain insignia on its right arm that he recognized all too well. This thing is a Decepticon, he exclaimed, surprising much of the group as all of them set their sights on Dreadwing for an explanation. The Seeker sighed as he spoke. As Prime said, these subterranean creatures had made their way to Cybertron's surface near the end of the war. Our scientist Shockwave saw their potential and chose to recruit them, despite many protests he faced, including my own. Still think you're with the good guys, Suzaku? Colin glared at the shocked honorary Britannian. Hey, wait, do you guys hear that? Nonet asked as the entire group heard more sounds that sounded like rapidly flapping wings, almost like the buzzing noises insects make, only much larger. They soon discovered the sources of the sound to be 3 large creatures that resembled massive Herculean beetles. They entered the clearing and began to circle the group before they transformed to reveal they were insecticons as well, identical to the one that had just been killed. But it wasn't just them, a different insecticon flew in that seemed to resemble something of a large wasp-like creature before it transformed to reveal a smaller insecticon with silver color scheme, with hints of purple and yellow around Bumblebee's size, with 2 large claws coming out of its back in addition to his normal hands at his sides. It was clearly the leader of this group. Well, look at what we have here, here. It said with a snickered kickback. Dreadwing recognized him. First, Shockwave's tower blows up. Kickback began. We end up on another planet. Now we got bots and cons waking us up. Why is he talking like that? Rai asked. Some kind of speech impediment, I'm guessing. Bumblebee guessed. Kickback, I order you and your forces to stand down at once. By the order of Lord Megatron. Dreadwing demanded. I think not. Kickback replied. We just woke up after who knows how long. Now we're hungry. And Lukey, we got lots of fresh energon. Sick boys. He pointed toward the group as his Insecticon trio roared and charged at them. Optimus and Dreadwing were the first to open fire and draw the attention of the incoming monsters, while Bumblebee ran to grab all 6 of the humans in his arms and drop them off into the woods. Stay here. Behind you. Zero warned as Kickback's insect mode flew above Bumblebee to grab him by the talons and throw him toward the wall. We have to go. Now, he told the others. For once Zero, I agree. Nonette exclaimed as she grabbed the princess's hand. Yuffie, Suzaku, let's go. The group ran deep in the forest, but it wasn't unnoticed by Kickback. Oh, little fleshy playthings, things. Get 'em. One Insecticon heard his leader's command through a special sonic frequency and ran in pursuit of the humans, much to the recovering Bumblebee's shock. He was about to rush after them, only for Kickback to transform into his normal Cybertronian form and land his feet on Bumblebee's back before jumping up to stand in front of him. Don't think so, Autobot, bot. Kickback snickered, resulting in Bumblebee glaring as he rushed to tackle Kickback and face him directly. Optimus and Dreadwing found themselves literally backed into a corner as the remaining 2 Insecticons loomed over to them. Dreadwing, whatever conflict is between us, remains unfinished. But if we don't unite against our common foe, the Insecticons will destroy all of us, including our human companions. Dreadwing agreed to the temporary alliance as he drew his sword and swung it, challenging one of the Insecticons as he rushed it, leaving Optimus to deal with the remaining one. Meanwhile, the one Insecticon that Kickback had sent after the humans searched the forest for its prey, while the 6 of them hid in a nearby cave to avoid being seen. These things make scraplets look downright pleasant. Rai commented in a harsh whisper. Scraplets? Euphemia asked. Don't ask. Zero and Colin both said simultaneously. Well, anyone got an ideas on how to take that thing down? If you do, I'm all ears. Nonette said. There might be a search party nearby, Suzaku suggested. If they're Britannian forces. Out of the question, Zero stated. And before you say anything, Suzaku, it's not because they're the enemy. It's because just one of these Insecticons was able to throw Optimus and Dreadwing around like ragdolls. If one of them is able to overpower 2 of the largest Cybertronians we've seen, what are puny Sutherlands going to do other than literally getting torn to shreds? He has a point. Nonette agreed. Looks like we'll have to settle this on our own. Colin said. Be a whole lot easier if we had our nightmares. Yuffie began to think as an idea came to her. Zero, when the 2 of us and Optimus came here, I remember passing by a small cliff, with a bunch of jagged rocks on the bottom. They looked pretty sharp. Maybe. Zero glanced out the cave as he saw this jungle was lined with many vines that seemed pretty thick enough. Alright, you might be onto something. But if it's going to work, we all need to work together. Suzaku, Enneagram, would you be willing to cooperate with us? Beats getting eaten alive, Nonette said immediately. And there's no way I'm going to let you down again. She cast a small glance in Rei's direction. Suzaku however seemed to be hesitant, something Euphemia noticed. Suzaku, we have no other choice. We all need to work together on this, so just this once, listen to Zero. Consider that an order. With a sigh, Suzaku accepted. Alright. He then looked at Rai. But we are going to have a talk about this later. How about after we kill that oversized bug? Rai suggested. Alright, we need a distraction. Zero began to think. Something to keep it busy while we set up the trap. I'll go. What? Yuffie exclaimed in surprise, greatly worried for her brother. By yourself? Colin seemed equally concerned. Even Suzaku looked stunned. You're willing to offer yourself as bait. If a leader doesn't lead, how can he expect his friends and allies to follow? Zero asked, surprising Suzaku even further. He honestly did not expect Zero to willingly put his life in danger for his subordinates. Did he misjudge him? Zero, no offense, but you're skinny as a twig. Rice said. You need someone who can actually run for their lives. So, I'll be the bait. Rai. Zero tried to say something. Not by yourself you're not. Colin said. We're partners, remember. She offered her friend a smirk and a handshake, which Rai accepted. Zero, we'll keep that thing busy. Yes, we will. Nonette said as she put her hand on both of theirs, surprising the group even further. I'm a knight of the round, I've got special training, and you need all the help you can get. I'm in. I'm in too. Suzaku put his hand in. We'll keep it busy. Very well. Zero put his faith in his friends, even if one of them was at the moment on the opposite side. Euphemia, you and I will set up the trap. Once it's ready, I'll fire my gun into the air. The four of you will lead that insecticon to the trap. The location is roughly half a kilometer east from here. Understood. Colin nodded as she, Suzaku, Rai, and Nonette all stood up. Let's go. They walked out of the cave as they saw the insecticon in view. Hey, over here, Rai called to it as he picked up a rock and threw it at its head to get its attention. Come on, fight me. No, me. Nonette waved her hands as they ran around it. Come on. This way, Suzaku called to it as the group began to run into the forest. Come and get us, you oversized bug. Colin also called to it as the insecticon roared and chased after its prey, taking the bait. As they saw the insecticon move deeper into the forest, Yuffie couldn't help but express total worry for both Suzaku and Nonette. She felt a firm hand on her shoulder and turned to see Zero. Even though she couldn't see her brother's face under the mask, she could tell that he was giving her an assuring look, saying it was going to be alright. Come on, let's go. Yuffie nodded and followed her brother. Back in the clearing, Dreadwing swung his blade down toward the insecticon he was facing, which was able to block it with its smaller insect-like arm before slugging him in the face to send him crashing across the ground. Though Dreadwing was quick to stand back up as he picked up a large boulder and chucked it at its head. This disoriented the insecticon enough to give Dreadwing an opening for him to strike on its head with his blade, slicing off most of its mandibles before slicing at its chest to knock it back. However, as he went in for a third slice, the insecticon dealt a powerful punch to Dreadwing's chest to knock him into the air before he crashed into the ground. However, the Decepticon was quick to pick himself up. He bore witness to the insecticon stomping on his blade, shattering it as it roared, challenging at him. Dreadwing responded with a yell of his own as he rushed the bug-like Cybertronian with only his bare hands. Meanwhile, Optimus had dealt several punches to the face of the insecticon he was facing and was able to knock it down with a powerful slug to its face. He primed his ion blaster with the intent on finishing it, but the insecticon quickly grabbed his arm and got back up to flip Optimus over his head and slam him down hard onto the ground before throwing Optimus at the nearest cliffside. This disoriented Optimus slightly, but his optics widened as he saw the Insecticon transform into its Herculean beetle mode and attempted to fly and rush him, but Optimus rolled out of the way as it impacted the cliffside and shook the area a bit. The Prime was quick to get back on his feet to tackle the Insecticon to the ground. At the same time, Bumblebee continued to shoot energon blasts at the flying kickback as he was in his bug form. The crazed Insecticon shot down at Bumblebee faster than he could react and crashed him into the ground before transforming to pin him down even further. I hear they call you Bumblebee. Kickback said sadistically. Does that mean you can sting like me? Me. He chuckled insanely, only to be halted as Bumblebee was able to kick him off with his right leg before quickly getting back up. He then rushed Kickback and dealt a punch across his face to knock him back before dealing many more punches. However, Kickback retaliated with slashes from its upper claws, which cut Bumblebee across his chest and spilt some energon, allowing Kickback to blast the Autobot scout back with an energon blast from its hands. Kickback brought some of the dripping energon from its right upper claw close to its faceplate, which opened up to reveal insect-like mandibles as it tasted the dripping energon. That is good, good, good. Give me more, more, more. Kickback transformed again and fired more energon blasts at Bumblebee, forcing him to dodge the blasts and return fire with his own energon blasters. Back in the forest, the 4 human soldiers continued to run from the pursuing insecticon as it used its massive hands and arms to bash and clear away all the trees that stood in its way. Rai ran toward the side and picked up several rocks, which he threw at the insecticon's side to get his attention. Come on, bug boy, over here. Rai waved his arms as the insecticon attempted to rush him. However, it wouldn't get too far as Nonette swung down from a vine to land her feet on its head. Though she didn't hurt it, she did get its attention as she let go of the vine and landed on the ground some distance away, but the massive metallic monster was quick to close the distance and loom over her. Hey, hey, Colin called to it from behind. I got a bug zapper right here for you. The insecticon then focused its attention on Colin and attempted to rush her, but this seemed to distract it for Suzaku to leap down from the tree he climbed up and land on its head. He got the rock he recently picked up and banged on its head. Though he was certain it wouldn't damage it, this would still get its attention. The insecticon was unable to reach for Suzaku with its hands, so it instead transformed into its Herculean bug form and attempted to fly and shake him off, though Suzaku was still able to hold on, albeit for dear life. It then descended back to the ground as it attempted to shoot energon blasts from its horn, forcing Colin, Rai, and Nonette to take cover and avoid getting blown up. That thing has lasers. Colin practically screamed. The giant transforming alien bug has freaking lasers. Well, it is a Cybertronian. Nonette pointed out. That's not exactly helpful. Rai told her. They wouldn't get a chance to argue however as the insecticon flew back down and transformed once it reached the ground to knock Suzaku off and send him crashing onto the 3 other humans, knocking them down. The insecticon looked more annoyed than anything as it loomed over the frightened quartet. Bang, 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 asterisk. A trio of gunshots was heard in the air, getting the insecticon's attention, as well as the 4 humans. That's the signal, Rai said. Come on, let's go. He, Colin, Suzaku, and Nonette ran directly under the distracted insecticon in the direction Zero told them to go, prompting the insecticon to chase after them. The trap was all set. Multiple vines had been tied around 2 large trees as they were grouped together and tightened, at the same length that was twice the length of Sutherland. Hopefully the multiple vines wound together made it thick enough for it not to snap when their quarry tripped on it. As Zero made a final check-up, Euphemia looked down the cliff below them. It was a 100-foot drop with multiple jagged rocks at the bottom that seemed hopefully sharp enough. Lelouch, do you really think this will work? Euphemia asked. Honestly, I have no idea. Zero replied. But if it doesn't, we have to get back to Optimus and the others and hope they can finish it. Though he clenched his fists in frustration at the fact he couldn't do much more without a nightmare. However, they began hearing the stomping noises that rapidly made their way towards them. When I say now, roll out of the way. Got it. Got it. Euphemia nodded as they waited. What seemed like only a few seconds was an agonizing eternity for the both of them until they saw their friends run for their lives out of the clearing. It's right behind us. Nonette screamed as the insecticon roared, bashing the trees and foliage out of the way of its charge. Zero had to wait till got close enough before they could move. Lelouch's eyes shook beneath the mask before it was finally time. Now, he exclaimed as both he and Euphemia separated and rolled toward the left and right sides respectively, just as the insecticon had made its way at their location, its right foot twisting on the vines set up. However, the trees snapped out of the ground, something Lelouch didn't intend, but it did help them as the trees tangled around it, blocking its view as the insecticon lost its footing on the cliff and fell down face first into the rocks below. The 6 of them all quickly walked towards the edge as they saw the result of their plan. The insecticon had been impaled in multiple spots, notably in its chest and neck as they saw a large puddle of energon leaking out from the bottom. It twitched for a moment, before its visor turned dark, indicating its termination. Think we got it? Suzaku asked. Yes, seems that way. Zero confirmed. Good. Colin breathed a huge sigh of relief as she fell down on her rear, followed by Rai and Nonette. Let's agree to never try anything like that again. At least not with our nightmares. Rai joked, resulting in much of the group chuckling. Suzaku gave a deep sigh of relief at their accomplishment but was caught off guard by Yuffie, who ran and wrapped her arms around him. Yuffie. I was so worried about you, she said as she buried her face into his chest. Suzaku's surprise faded as he wrapped his arms around her as well. I'm glad you're okay too. Lelouch couldn't help but smile underneath his mask. This gesture shows that Suzaku does truly care for Euphemia. Megatron hasn't corrupted him completely, he could still be saved. So, is it over? Rai asked. Not yet, Nonette replied. We need to at least make sure Dreadwing and the others are alright. Agreed, let's head back. Zero said as he offered Colin a hand up, which she took as Rai and Nonette helped each other up as well. The older woman smiled at him, as Rai did his best to hide his own smile as well before the group went back in the direction they came. Back in the clearing, Dreadwing had rushed the insecticon he was fighting from behind and pounded both his fists on its back neck area, but the insecticon was quick to turn around and slap him away with his arm. However, brute force alone wasn't his objective as Dreadwing took out his trigger and pressed the button on it. The insecticon heard an odd noise coming from its back, which was revealed to be one of Dreadwing's bombs, which blew up to completely obliterate the monster's upper half. The second insecticon flew down in its Herculean beetle mode to shoot energon blasts at Optimus, who deflected all the blasts with his right arm blade before using his ion cannon in his left hand to score a direct shot on its right wings, causing the insecticon to stumble out of control and fall down toward Optimus, who rushed with his blade to decapitate the monster from underneath as its body and severed head skidded across the ground. No, my brothers, Kickback exclaimed at seeing his fellow Insecticons get wrecked so brutally. However, this left him open for Bumblebee to grab him by his shoulders and slam his face down onto a nearby rock to break off his faceplate and expose his mandibles. Though Kickback's upper claws lashed back to knock Bumblebee off, Kickback seemed disoriented, which gave B the opening he needed. Float like a butterfly, Bumblebee played through his radio before charging a shot in his right energon blaster as he rushed at Kickback. The crazed Insecticon couldn't react in time for Bumblebee to punch his blaster right into his face and firing his charged shot, which was enough to completely obliterate his head, killing Kickback as his headless body fell back to the ground. Sting like a bee. Bumblebee's radio finished before he blew off the smoke from his gun. Looks like you guys are all cleared up here, Rai said as he, Zero, Colin, Suzaku, Euphemia, and Nonette stepped out into the clearing. I trust the rest of you are alright, Optimus asked. We're fine, Optimus, Zero assured. The last Insecticon has been dealt with. He's been skewered, Nonette confirmed. He won't be getting back up again. Good, Dreadwing said before he pulled out his cannon once more, much to the surprise of most of the group. Now that our alliance has served its purpose. Oh, come on, Colin exclaimed. Are you kidding me? Dreadwing, wait, please, Yuffie pleaded. We're not meant to fight each other. Please, Suzaku, Nonette, you two have to listen to what Zero and Optimus what to say. She's right, Zero said as he stepped into the clearing, Ryan Colin sticking close if Dreadwing or Suzaku tried anything. It's time we finally had our talk. However, the minute Zero's foot stepped into the center of the clearing, a massive glowing red Geass sigil formed on the ground, much to everyone's shock. A Geass, Optimus thought in surprise. What? Even Lelouch was caught off guard as the Geass sigil in his left eye began to glow brightly, despite him not activating it on his own. Rai suddenly felt a throbbing pain in his head as he fell on his knees, clutching his head as he yelled in pain, the Geass sigil in both his eyes glowing brightly. Rai. Colin leaned down to his level and see what the problem was, but the group had other things to worry about as the entire ground beneath them began to shake and collapse. Despite being confined to a small cell on the Nemesis, and out of range of the thought elevators, VV had a smirk on his face as he had felt Lelouch and Kaiser stumble right into the trap he had planned for them. The thought elevator began to glow a bright red, much to the shock of the Decepticons and Britannians as the entire cave shook with incredible force. What is happening? Starscream questioned. The energy is spiking out of control. Thundercracker reported as he, Knockout, and Lloyd could see the data from their respective consoles. It's even stronger than it was active on Shikini Island. The cave is crumbling down. Everyone get back, Knockout stated as the group made their way from the collapsing pillars near the thought elevator. My lord, please save yourself. Bartley attempted to pull Schneizel out of the way as they saw the platform above fall into the cave, carrying with them the group consisting of Optimus, Zero, Colin, Bumblebee, Rai, Suzaku, Dreadwing, Euphemia, and Nonette. Dreadwing. Skywarp exclaimed in surprise. Major Kururugi. Lady Enneagram. Lloyd was just as surprised, and is that, Zero. And the Autobots. Most of the heroes turned around in surprise to see the many enemy soldiers they were now facing. Optimus Prime. Starscream scowled as multiple Britannian soldiers aimed their guns at the group. "Don't shoot, you fools," Bartley exclaimed to the soldiers. "Princess Euphemia and Lady Enneagram are with them. Capture them. Capture them." Bumblebee and Optimus quickly stood in front of their human companions as Breakdown was the first to try and rush them with his hammer, but Optimus ducked under the swing to catch Breakdown's arm, pick up the large Decepticon with both his hands and throw him at Starscream, Skywarp, Thundercracker, and Knockout to knock all of them down at once. "Guys, a nightmare." Colin pointed to the Gawain that was close to them. "Perfect. We'll use that. Let's go." Zero was the first to rush to the Gawain. "Bumblebee, cover them," Optimus ordered as he and Bumblebee aimed their Energon blasters at the Britannian soldiers to keep them from shooting. Dreadwing meanwhile stood protectively around Suzaku, Euphemia, and Nonette to avoid having them caught up in the crossfire. Colin however noticed Rai hadn't moved from his spot. He was still on his knees, hands clutching his head, his pupils shaken in his widened eyes as if he had seen 100 ghosts all at once. "Rai, Rai." Colin shook his shoulder to shake him out of his trance. "We have to go." Right. He quickly got up as they quickly joined Zero in climbing into the Black Nightmare. It was a two-man cockpit, but with Zero in the driver's seat, Colin and Rai had to squish together in the seat above him as they could barely fit. "This is good," Zero said. "Not only unmanned but activated too." He pressed the right activation buttons to turn the Gawain on as the cockpit closed around all three of them. What kind of nightmare is this? However, Zero saw someone very familiar through the nightmare's screens, Schneizel. The Britannian prince had to take a few steps back as he finally saw Britannia's greatest enemies stand before him. "That's Zero, and Optimus Prime." "Ah, the Gawain," Lloyd exclaimed as it powered up. "Zero, we have to leave. Now," Optimus told his friend. Lelouch knew that Optimus was right. Schneizel, next time. He piloted the Gawain out of the cave with Bumblebee and Optimus running beside him. "No, don't let them get away. Not with the Gawain," Bartley exclaimed as Starscream and the other Decepticons recovered. Multiple Sutherlands began to flood the entrance and block their escape, but Bumblebee and Optimus were able to quickly shoot them down and clear the path, allowing themselves and the large Black Nightmare to escape outside. "Stop them," Starscream yelled. "Do not allow them to escape." The heroes quickly found themselves surrounded entirely by a dozen Viacon troopers and 20 Sutherlands total as they were all in front of the Avalon. "Damn it, we're surrounded," Zero cursed as he removed his mask. "Doesn't this thing have any weapons?" Colin exclaimed. Lelouch checked the systems over but gave an annoyed tisk. "They're either unresponsive or incomplete. This nightmare is unfinished." Despite being surrounded, Optimus found himself looking back inside the cave, directly at the thought elevator deep inside. Though he couldn't make out the hieroglyphics, he did recognize the glowing Geass symbol that appeared on the ground just above the chamber. He even noticed a few similar symbols on the mural. Without a doubt, this strange object was connected to Geass. But why are the Decepticons and Britannia here? Whatever the case, if this was connected to Geass, he could not allow such a power to fall into the enemy's hands. Without a moment's hesitation, Optimus converted his right arm into an ion blaster and shot directly into the cave. The Energon blast scored direct hits on the thought elevator, and it only took about 5 or 6 shots for the entire thing to crumble as it gave off a bright red flash, blinding every human and Cybertronian present. VV gave a gasp as he had felt it, even from his confines in the Nemesis. He fell to his knees as he clutched his head, his eyes shaking with shock and rage as he took multiple rapid breaths. He didn't, he stuttered. "No, he destroyed the thought elevator. No." VV ranted like a bratty child. No, how dare you, Optimus Prime, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you? CC sat in the Ashford clubhouse on Lelouch's bed as she undoubtedly felt the same thing. Though she was initially shocked at the thought elevator's destruction, she couldn't help but smirk as she could already imagine the looks on Charles, Vivi, and Marianne's faces. That's what you get for underestimating Optimus. She snarked. The screens on the Ark's bridge suddenly sprang to life as Optimus and Bumblebee's location was finally known, much to Ratchet and Fixit's surprise and relief. Optimus and Bumblebee's signals are back online. Fixit exclaimed. Thank the Allspark. Ratchet stated with joy. Oh no, Fixit's relief turned into read. Multiple Decepticon and Britannian signals are surrounding them. Ratchet immediately called for reinforcements as he activated the Ark's speakers. All Autobots to the ground bridge bay immediately. Schneizel, Lloyd, and Bartley looked in shock as they saw the crumbled ruins of what was left of the thought elevator. Starscream was just as shocked as they were before he turned with a heated glare towards Optimus, Bumblebee, and the Black Knights in the Gawain. Destroy them, he yelled, ordering the Decepticons and Britannian soldiers to terminate their enemies. However, before they could open fire, a ground bridge portal suddenly opened up 20 meters away from their current location as the vehicle modes of RC, Cliffjumper, Bulkhead, Wheeljack, and Ironhide all rode out onto the battlefield. RC was the first to gun it as she transformed and dealt a flying kick to completely obliterate one Sutherland before firing her Energon blasters to take down two more. Bulkhead and Ironhide both transformed and fired their respective cannons to obliterate most of the enemy forces as they and the other Autobots provided cover for their friends. About time you guys popped up. We were worried sick, Ironhide stated. I apologize for the delay. Optimus nodded. Nice nightmare by the way. Wheeljack complimented the Gawain. Where's Colin? RC questioned worriedly. I'm in here, RC. Colin told her from inside the Black Nightmare. Zero and Rye are both with me too. Then let's get the heck out of here. Bulkhead stated as Breakdown, Knockout, Thundercracker, and Skywarp made it out of the cave. Autobots, fall back. Optimus ordered as he and his comrades all transformed and rolled along with the Gawain into the still active groundbridge portal, but not before Cliffjumper transformed back briefly to smirk at the surviving Britannian and Decepticon forces. Nice seeing you guys again. We'll let you know the next time when we're available to kick your skid plates. Cliffjumper trolled with a finger salute before running into the groundbridge portal right as it closed. No, not the Gawain. Our beautiful prized Gawain. Bartley cried in despair as he, Schneizel, and Lloyd were all outside, with Suzaku, Euphemia, Nonette and Dreadwing right behind them. Well, it was only a test model. Schneizel didn't seem too upset over it. He took the moment to observe the destruction around him. This was his first time seeing the Autobots in action, and all the reports he heard did not do them justice. He was not only surprised but also impressed. They easily blew through his own forces like nothing. He glanced back inside the cave at the remains of the thought elevator. He destroyed the thought elevator, which seemed to be the source of the energy that blocked all communications. Schneizel thought, but was that his intent? Or does he know something about them that I don't? An intrigued smile formed on his face. Optimus Prime, you truly are an interesting character. Aside from that, I'm thankful the three of you are alright. Schneizel spoke to Euphemia, Suzaku, and Nonette directly. Prince Schneizel. Nonette did not expect to see him here. Euphemia however was more than a little happy to see her older brother. Schneizel. She wasted no time in running to him and wrapping her arms around him. You would not believe what we went through on this island. Schneizel could hear the distress sound in his younger half-sister's voice. What do you mean? Euphy, what happened? The four of us, Nonette began, referring to herself, Suzaku, Euphemia and Dreadwing, including Zero, Optimus, and their allies were all attacked by these creatures called insecticons. That took most of the Decepticons by surprise. Insecticons. Thundercracker exclaimed. Here on Earth. It's true, even the one known as Kickback was here. Dreadwing confirmed. Though Kickback himself, and 4 other Insecticons were terminated, there might be more on this island. Perhaps even in other locations on this planet as well. Insecticons, you say? Lloyd looked rather intrigued. Well, that sounds interesting. I'd be very excited to see something like that. No Lloyd, trust me, you don't. Knockout advised him. However, all conversations were brought to a halt as Starscream walked directly towards Suzaku and gave him a heated glare, much to the honorary Britannian's confusion. Is there a problem, Commander Starscream? Suzaku asked. Oh yes, there most certainly is, you wretched human. Starscream primed his Energon blaster and aimed it directly at Suzaku, much to everyone's surprise, especially Euphemia, Dreadwing, and Nonette. Over and over again, you've repeatedly questioned and disrespected me since the beginning, even disobeying a direct order. And as if that wasn't bad enough, you've allowed our worst enemies to escape with a new weapon at their disposal. I've tolerated your insubordination long enough. There is no way I'm letting you leave this island alive. Suzaku gave a gasp, but Euphemia was the first to try and defend him. What is the meaning of this? Major Kururugi is my knight. You can't just. That goes for you too. Starscream aimed his second Energon blaster directly at Euphemia, much to her shock, as well as Schneizel's and every other Britannian present. How dare you threaten Princess Euphemia? Bartley exclaimed. You have no right. Shut your mouth. Starscream exclaimed at the fat general, causing him to fall back in fright. Nonette immediately rushed to Euphemia's side as she stood protectively in front of the princess as the remaining Britannian soldiers and nightmares aimed their weapons at Starscream, while Breakdown, Thundercracker, Skywarp, and the surviving Viacons aimed their own Energon weapons at the Britannians in response. Knockout chose to back away from the scene along with Lloyd to avoid being caught up in the matter. Every single one of you wretched Britannians has failed to deliver any kind of results. Starscream ranted. You squabble over the most pitiful and vain of matters, allowing our enemies to grow every single day. At least Schneizel is willing to deliver results when he ordered that bombardment on the Lancelot. Euphie gasped as she glanced at her brother, who only held his head down. But the rest of you are ineffective and incompetent. And I will not tolerate this any longer. Starscream, they are our only allies. Dreadwing marched in front of his commander. You cannot blame them for all our failures when we are just as responsible. Dreadwing, have you forgotten that I am your superior? Starscream screamed. If you dare side with Kururugi and Euphemia, I will terminate you along with them. And that goes for any other filthy Britannian that tries to protect them. This island will be their graves. Starscream. All eyes turned to behind the Seeker as his own face changed from rage to fear at the sight of an open ground bridge portal and the Decepticon leader that stepped out of it with Soundwave right behind him. Lord, Megatron. Starscream stuttered. That's Megatron. Schneizel thought in surprise as this was the first time seeing him in the flesh. Though he had seen recordings of him, being in his presence was something else entirely. Bartley's face contorted clear fear and dread at the sight of him, and even Euphemia was visibly terrified. Now that she knew who and what he really was, there was nothing to stop her fear from reaching the surface as her body was immediately drenched in a cold sweat. My master, Kururugi, has repeatedly defied us. Starscream tried to save face. It was a mistake to bring him into our ranks. It was a mistake to ally with Britannia. They continue to stumble and question us, repeatedly getting in our way and preventing us from. The cowardly Seeker was silenced by Megatron smacking him with his arm to send him skidding across the ground and crashing against the Avalon's side, denting it a little. This kind of infighting is exactly why our enemies continue to succeed. Megatron stated. However, I will agree with you about one thing, Starscream. Insubordination cannot be tolerated. He looked at the young soldier directly. What are you talking about? The confused Suzaku asked. The Ark. The Autobots had returned along with the newly acquired Gawain as Lelouch, Colin, and Rai stepped down. Among those waiting for them included Shirley, Toto, Ogi, Fixit, Tamaki, and even Rakshata. Guys. Shirley rushed to all three of her human friends and wrapped her arms around all of them. I was so worried about you. Lelouch and Colin were the first to embrace her back, though Rai was somewhat hesitant with his. Thanks, sorry we made you worry. Lelouch said. Colin, are you okay? Ogi quickly rushed in front of her with worry. Yeah, I'm fine, Ogi. Sorry to be gone for so long. Colin nodded. Good, cause RC here was about to have a panic attack. Cliffjumper smirked. Hey, was it wrong that I was worried about my partner? RC questioned, resulting in some chuckles from nearly everyone present. Thanks for being so worried. Colin smiled at her partner, older sister figure, who smiled in return. Damn, what the heck is that thing? Tamaki said with a smirk upon seeing the Gawain. That's one big nightmare. Yeah, I thought it was pretty sick too. Wheeljack smirked. Can't wait to see what this bad boy has got tucked away in there. He tapped the Gawaine's shoulder. Well, well, Rakshata observed the Gawaine with a grin. Looks like I got a new toy to play with. One new special nightmare to add to arsenal. Fix-It seemed quite excited himself as he looked at the impressive black nightmare. Lelouch, Optimus, glad to see you're both alright. Toto said with a relived smile. Thank you, Colonel Toto. Optimus nodded as Lelouch smiled as well. Hey, what am I? Chopped liver. Bumblebee said in a joking fashion. Bulkhead chuckled as he lightly bumped Bee's shoulder. Good to see you too, Bee. He was about to address his human partner when he noticed the look on Ray's face. Hey, Ray, are you okay? Ray's face still had the same sort of expression he did when the thought elevator trap activated. So many memories had all filled his head, and he wasn't sure what to make of them as there was one memory in particular that made him look as if he had seen something truly terrible. Ray, Shirley asked him with concern. Are you alright? You look like you've seen a ghost. I just need to sit down for a minute, Ray said as he walked away, leaving every human and bot to look in his direction with concern. What's going on with him? Ironhide asked Lelouch, Colin, and Bumblebee, who didn't seem to have an answer to give either. They were about as worried and confused as everyone else. Optimus, what exactly happened? Ratchet asked his leader. First you, Lelouch, Bumblebee, Ray, and Colin just disappear, then I can't locate your signals at all. Next they pop back up on a separate island entirely. Ratchet, there is much that we need to discuss. Optimus spoke not just to his medic and friend, but to everyone else present. We have learned some new information that could alter the tide of this war, and it must be discussed immediately. He's right. Lelouch nodded. At the same time, a certain memory popped back into his mind. I'm sorry, Suzaku. I didn't intend to use Geass on you. He remembered he gave the simple Geass command to live back on Shikini Island to his friend, whom he still hoped can be saved. Soundwave's faceplate showed the recorded footage of the Lancelot driving away from the scene back on Shikini Island before the recorded voices took over. Kururugi. Follow your orders. Starscream's voice yelled. Shut up. Suzaku's recorded voice yelled back. Who the hell cares about them? I have to live. Static took over the sound and imagery on Soundwave's visor as Megatron spoke. That is where it cuts off. I am unsure how you ended up on a separate island, but you threw away a golden opportunity to eliminate both Optimus and Zero. Care to explain this, Suzaku? Suzaku couldn't believe what he just saw and heard. Was that really me? Yes, it was, you insolent fool. Starscream yelled before he was silenced by a glare from Megatron. Suzaku Kururugi, I am going to ask you this and I want an honest answer from you. Megatron spoke to the honorary Britannian directly. Did you purposely disobey your orders? There was some hesitance before Suzaku spoke. No, I wouldn't, I couldn't. Megatron looked at Soundwave, who replayed his answer through his systems and indicated that Suzaku had given an honest response. He doesn't remember. Megatron thought to himself. Lelouch was directly in front of him, so more than likely it was his Geass. But this isn't the first time Kururugi has avoided taking a life, be it his will or not. Perhaps I was mistaken in recruiting him. He is a talented warrior, but he's much too hesitant and naive. His reluctance could make him more of a liability. What exactly is it that is going on inside your head, Suzaku Kururugi? Perhaps it's time to find out. Prince Schneizel. Megatron spoke to the prince directly as he gave him his undivided attention. Allow me to take Kururugi into my custody. I will look into this matter personally. Yes, I believe that may be for the best. Schneizel nodded. However, Euphemia seemed dead set against it. Absolutely not. Major Kururugi is my soldier. You can't just. She was suddenly silenced by a glare from Megatron. One look into his evil red eyes was enough to make Euphemia's heart stop briefly as she almost fell back. Schneizel put a hand on her shoulder. Euphi, I feel this is a matter we have no say in. The best we can do is just let them be. Euphi wanted to protest, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. One look from the monster that she knew was truly evil was enough to shatter her confidence. Kururugi, report to the Nemesis. Megatron ordered. Suzaku sighed before responding. Yes, Lord Megatron. Soundwave opened a ground bridge portal and allowed himself, Megatron and Suzaku to step in as his leader gave him a special order. Contact Shockwave. I have a special assignment for him. And this is the end of part 14 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.